Sorry, was muted. Now I'm live. Welcome to day 3 of the International Day of Calm Summit. We're super happy to have you all joining us again. Please share this out with your friends so they can have the experience that you've been having for the last 2 days. It's been a really wonderful journey, and I mute. Okay, sorry, I don't know. Let me move my little arrow guy away from there. So, thank you. Any updates on CL King? Thank you for asking, Matthew. He is doing well. He is resting. He is supposed to not move around, except he has a couple speaking engagements coming up, and he is not one to sit still. So we had a discussion about his health being primary. Thank you for asking. Yes, he is doing well. Continue your prayers, please. So, today is day 3, and we have a lineup to really work on your relationships with your children, with each other, how you are going to be the one who is the voice of calm, and how you will understand how you can affect others in your lives. So, we have our first speaker, Kate Lund. She's going to talk about children and how they understand resiliency and how to empower them. And it will in turn empower other relationships because all of this information is vital to any relationship. You can bring this advice into any adult relationship, even if someone is specifically talking about children, it totally relates. Next up is Saurabh Atri, and he will be talking about building your relationships through your strengths. An amazing presenter and full of valuable information. And closing up our sessions at 11 a.m. Eastern Time will be me and my friend, Coach Wendy of Nigeria, as we get you to stop yelling at your kids once and for all. So I hope you all are able to stay for the whole time, and more value to come. Before we bring up our first speaker, though, my sister Maddie, who you heard from on day 1, shared a post from a woman on Facebook. Her name is Stephanie Phelps, and I thank her for this post. And this is what it said. Pink full moon and 3 holy faiths are coming together for a religious convergence with Eastern and Western calendars. What an overlap in the calendar for Passover, Ramadan, and Easter. And it only happens 3 times in a century for the holy days to overlap according to the full moon. Think of the power in 3 faiths offering their prayers simultaneously combined with the energy of a full moon. We have a Libra full moon, which is about balance, harmony, and cooperation. Imagine this. It's a call to peace, inspiring us to a bigger picture of coming together and the power of 3, setting your intentions to aim for love, joy, and peace, and we'll add in calm. Creating new earth with co-creative relationships, reminding us we can accomplish more together than on our own. We are absolutely stronger together. And this reminds us that we are not just aligning ourselves with each other, but we are being aligned spiritually. So I wish you all a very blessed Ramadan, Passover, and Easter as we enter into this amazing point of time in this century. And it couldn't be more fitting to close out our final day of the Day of Calm Summit. So now I would like to bring up Kate Lund. And Kate and I did a podcast together. And if you follow my podcast, which is the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast, available on all streaming networks, you will be able to see Kate and I also discuss a little more about what she's talking about today. But today, Kate just talks to us about why it is important for kids to believe in themselves. This is all what we're talking about here. Our job to role model what needs to be positive energy, positive life skills, positive values to our children so that they can bring that forth to the next generation. So I bring up Kate as we discuss how to resolve relationship. Oh, sorry, reading the wrong thing. Why it is important for kids to believe in themselves, and how does this make them resilient? Kate, welcome to the International Day of Calm. Hi, Kate.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I am truly grateful for you being here. You share so much wisdom and so much knowledge that any listener can take into not just relationships with children, but their own life. Because like I said, people forget, they go, oh, well, that's parenting advice. But if you listen closely, it's actually life advice.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited for this topic because honestly, we need to talk about resiliency, all the COVID, everything that where life changed March of 2020 when we thought, okay, schools are closed for a week, and they they never came back. They did come back, but it seemed like they never came back.
Right.
And just, that monumental change in society and community and the world. So welcome. Can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure, absolutely. And again, thank you for having me. So yeah, I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been a clinical psychologist for upwards of 20 years. I'm a mom to 15-year-old twin boys who definitely keep my husband and I on our toes. I've been married for 25 years. And a couple other fun facts. I'm a fitness enthusiast. I'm a golfer. And I'm a dog lover. And something exciting about the dog front is one of my dogs was just certified as a therapy dog. So we're out and about in the community visiting residents in assisted livings. And I can't tell you how rewarding that's been.
Sorry about that. So that's really wonderful. And, dogs, pets are amazing. Amazing for humans, amazing for kids. And also, they just don't teach children how to be compassionate. They also teach them responsibility. There are so many gifts that can be given to a child through the care of pets. And then a service animal returns every animal can return the favor, but a service animal does a special thing for their human. And my niece and her wife actually they do that. They do they train service animals through Kaiser K9. And I believe their website is kaiserk9.com or .org. So
very cool.
they do scent training, they do all kinds of service, and they have many dogs that are out there in the world with, the military, police, all these service individuals, and they've been doing that for years. So I love that you have a dog that does that too.
Very
So,
cool. Yeah.
we'd love to hear your presentation and get started, and excited to have you. And everybody listen up. If you have questions, you may put them in the comments, and we will probably wait till the end of Kate's presentation. So, she stays on track. I know she's like me, but, too many distractions. And so put them in the comments, and we will have a question and answer at the close of her session. Go to it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Celia. So, hi everyone. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate you being here. So, as Celia mentioned, this class is really going to look at the question of why it's important for our kids to believe in themselves, and how does this make them more resilient. And by resilience here, we're really looking at sort of the foundational meaning of resilience, this ability to move through and beyond challenge, move around obstacles when they come up, see possibility on the other side of challenge. That's really what we're talking about. And then we're going to look at sort of how we as parents can help to foster this sense of belief and possibility in our children, which allows them ultimately to maximize their potential within their own unique context. And this idea of one's own unique context is really so important to keep in mind, particularly with kids, because, we're all coming from different places, different experiences. We have different challenges. We all have challenges. We have different strengths. We all have strengths. And that's really, really important to keep in mind this idea that despite the challenges we might have, despite the challenges our kids might have, to really look for and try to highlight and foster those strengths within ourselves, within our children, and help them to do the same thing. So that's really what we're going to be looking at here today. And so I want to share a little bit about my own story, my own backstory, because it's a real catalyst for my interest in this area of resilience and belief in self, particularly as it relates to children. So I'll just give you a little bit of a background there. Ultimately, my childhood was a really good one, but it wasn't without challenges. At age 4, I was diagnosed with a medical condition called hydrocephalus, which is where the cerebral spinal fluid doesn't circulate as it should, and so pressure builds up on the brain. And what that means for a young child, what that means for anyone who develops hydrocephalus, is that you might throw up uncontrollably in the middle of the night. In my case, I would cry out as a 4-year-old and say that my forehead hurt. I would lose my balance and fall for no apparent reason. And it was really, really baffling. It was a baffling situation for my parents, even for the doctors initially, because diagnostics weren't what they are today. So it took a really long time to kind of figure out what was going on. The good thing is that the condition is managed with something called a shunt. And that actually will circulate the cerebral spinal fluid that isn't circulating on its own. Problem is that shunts break and they need to be surgically repaired. So what that meant for me as a kid was that I spent a good portion of my childhood, particularly those early years, in and out of the hospital, which meant lots of missed school, lots of time catching up on academics, on redefining peer relationships, extracurriculars, all of that stuff. But the really, really amazing and good thing that happened in that is that my parents, during the times when things were going well, didn't define me by the condition I happened to have. They really looked at me as the kid that I was and encouraged me to do the things that I could do, as opposed to focusing on all of the things that I couldn't do, because there were things I couldn't do. I couldn't hang upside down, do gymnastics with the other girls in my class, anything that might risk me hurting my head or myself in any way. But they encouraged other people to focus on the things I could do as well. So that really helped me to internalize that idea, and really helped me to develop that foundational belief in myself over time. Lots of hard moments in this, so I don't want to make it sound easy, but it really was a catalyst for where I am today. So that's a little bit of a backstory, which I felt was important to share. And I'm going to talk now about what I learned from those early experiences and what I've learned over time, because these learnings don't happen automatically. And that's a really important point for us to think about in relation to all of our kids. And I see this day in and day out with my own boys now in terms of, what they learn from the hard moments that they experience. But for me, what I learned from those early experiences with the hydrocephalus was I learned the value of appreciating individual difference. And that I think is so important for all of us to be thinking about in terms of how we're accepting folks who aren't the same, who look different, who act different, who aren't able to do the same things that we're able to do. And I think that as a result of my own challenges doing some of the things that my peers were doing, I was able to really internalize that idea of what it means to be different and how it's really important to appreciate that difference doesn't mean bad. Difference doesn't mean set apart. We can really embrace the difference and ultimately use that as a way to move forward. I developed, as a result of those early experiences, a really high level of empathy, interest in human experience. And I really believe that is a catalyst for, moving me in the direction of becoming a psychologist and, the work that I do today. Originally, back in the day, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician, but, my aptitudes didn't match up with kind of what would be required to become a pediatrician in that certain aspects of math, I believe because I missed a ton of school early on, didn't really line up. So it was more the behavioral sciences that became a passion. And so here I am. I learned how to communicate my limits and how to ask for help or to pivot when pushed beyond the point where I could bring my best to whatever I was doing. And I think that has been so, so important over time and so important for all of us to think about in relation to ourselves and in relation to our kids, because this ability to ask for help is so key in being able to move forward, in being able to move towards our potential in a way that makes sense within our own unique context. And speaking of context, I really did learn to appreciate my own unique context. And I learned the value in that in terms of competing with myself within that context. I played competitive tennis as a kid because tennis was a sport that I was able to play without risk because it was non-contact, and it really became a huge piece of my identity. But something really important to mention in there is I rarely won the tournaments. In fact, I can probably name maybe one, maybe two that I actually won, but that was okay. I was out there playing for the joy of playing. And I think that's a really important point for us to think about in relation to our kids, in relation to helping them to build up a belief in themselves and their ability to succeed and to be doing their best within their own unique context, even if they're not winning the tournament or winning the game. I think there's a lot of value in that. And I think it's really important, a really important aspect towards moving towards one's potential. And I see it in my clinical work. I've experienced it, lived it in myself, and I see it in my kids each and every day. So I think that's a really important point for us to keep in mind. And I've already mentioned this, but I learned to focus with the help of my parents, with the help of my teachers, with the help of my friends' parents, with the help of my coaches, to really focus in on the things I could do as opposed to the things I couldn't do. And that was really, really important for me in seeing the possibility on the other side of the challenges that I faced, because it was, easily I could have shut down when, an obstacle came up. But if you just sort of focus on taking that first step forward and building from there, I think that's very, very powerful and very, very important. And again, see it clinically all the time. see it in my own kids, and have lived it myself. So those experiences coming together, I think, illustrate the power in that. And so, kind of moving towards this idea of how we can take this foundational or fundamental self belief towards this idea of maximizing our potential, there were a lot of early lessons in that for me as well. And I guess one thing that's important to put in here is all of these lessons evolve over time. None of this is happening in the immediate, but these are all seeds that were planted. Um, and seeds that I see kind of taking root in my own kids at this point. One thing really, really important, I learned that in order to get to the next level, I'd have to build my foundational belief in myself. I'd have to do that through taking that step forward when things felt challenging, when I was scared, when I felt like I couldn't do it. I had to try to push myself forward despite. And it didn't always happen. It wasn't always easy. There were lots of moments where it took a lot of time or it didn't happen at all. And so all of this has evolved over time. But I try to make this point to my kids when they're struggling as well, because as I mentioned, I have twins, and one of them has an easier time sort of with a lot of the basic kind of foundational academic, sports related, physical endeavors than the other one. But the one who struggles, I really share with him some of my struggles, because I think that transparent relationship between parent and child is a really important piece of this, really helps to lay that foundation for self-belief and moving towards potential. But it's taking that first step and it's making that effort. And even if it doesn't work out, even if you have to take the step again, it's okay. And all of that really helped me to see that perseverance, hard work were really, really important. And that really helped me over time because it became my default and it made me kind of end up a bit ahead of the curve at points when other folks maybe stopped working because things came much more easily. And I see that with my own kids, actually. The one who has struggled a little bit has really integrated and internalized this idea of working hard and why that's important. So I think that's a very, very important point to make. I also want to highlight this idea of it's okay to try again when things don't go right the first time out of the gate. Um, I'll tell you, I've had to try again so many times throughout my life for so many different reasons. And it's a life lesson that I think we all need to internalize and to share with our children as a normal, expected, typical thing and a really important foundation catalyst for success and moving forward. And so let's get back to this idea of self belief and why it's so important for our kids to believe in themselves. So, if our kids believe in themselves on that foundational level, and we want it to come from the inside out, we want it to be an internalized sense of self belief. We don't want it to be sort of externally reinforced by, what everybody else is saying to them. We really want kids to believe in themselves from the inside out. And that's going to help them to overcome challenge. It's going to help them, as we've mentioned already, move towards their potential. It's going to help them to set goals, move towards those goals through taking action. We want kids to be able to move beyond their comfort zone, sort of across domains. And they're only going to be able to do that if they have this sort of fundamental belief in themselves. Ultimately, it's going to lead to success in school, work, in life. When we believe in ourselves, we're more readily able to connect with others in a positive way. And that also will allow us to give back to others. So those are some really sort of foundational reasons why it's important for kids to believe in themselves. And so, linked to this idea of self belief are three concepts that I want to cover: confidence, courage, and optimism. And so, let's talk about confidence first. And what I'm talking about when I'm mentioning confidence here is this idea, sort of on a foundational level, of being self assured, believing that I can do this, that sort of thing. And having that sort of self assurance is really important in fostering that belief in self from the inside out. And much like we said a moment ago, a foundational level of confidence is a catalyst for reaching our potential, for moving forward. It's going to prepare us to manage and move through and beyond challenge. And again, to reach for goals, to set goals, to take action. And it's going to help us again to move beyond our comfort zone, connect with others, and give back to others. And so, how can we foster this foundational sense of confidence in our kids or in those that we work with? Well, we can encourage kids to see the small successes along the way. Because oftentimes, we want to go from A to Z all at once and be successful. But that's not really the way it works. And particularly for our kids, it's important to kind of understand that up front so they don't get discouraged, so they don't give up. So we want to really reinforce, help our kids to see the small successes in what they're doing. Maybe they got a C on the math test last week, but this week they got a B or a B minus. Progress. We want to really help them to see progress. We want to help them to understand that practice and competence build confidence. And so practice builds competence, and then that builds confidence. And so we really want to reinforce that for them. We want to model that for them in our own lives as well. And we really also want to teach kids to recognize and use their strengths. Use their strengths to help them move forward within their own unique context. And that's a really, really important piece because, we don't want our kids comparing themselves to their best friend, comparing themselves to the kid that sits next to them in math class, for example, who might be doing much better than them. We really want them to be looking at their own unique context and measuring their progress within that context, because that's ultimately what's going to lead them towards their own unique potential. And also, this idea of self-talk. We want to help our kids to encourage themselves from the inside out. Instead of telling themselves they should have done better, they aren't good enough, all of these things, we want to help flip that script and help them to say, recognize their effort. I did the best I could. Yeah, maybe I can do better next time, but in this particular moment, I did the best I could. I think that's really, really an important piece. It's an important piece for all of us because human nature can lead us in that other direction, in that direction of tearing ourselves down, thinking about all the would haves, could haves, should haves, things that should have done better, should have gone better, when really right in front of us, there are small successes. There are things that we can see that did go well, and really taking the step back, taking the time to recognize those things is very, very important. And so, more specifically, what can we do to, as parents, as educators, to foster this confidence? We want to help our kids to embrace challenge and see it as an opportunity. We want to help kids, through noticing their small successes, believe in their ability to succeed, because that belief is so incredibly key. And if they don't have that belief, they might get stagnant. They might not know what it is to move towards potential, to live potential ultimately. And again, really want to help our kids to identify their strengths as a way of compensating for their challenges. I had to really focus in on that early on and have been able to use my strengths to compensate for challenges that, still exist to this day. But, in kind of building that early foundation, I've been able to really dial that in and move forward despite challenge. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we all have challenges. We all have things that are obstacles for us that we need to overcome. So that's a really, really important piece that I wanted to share. So moving on to courage. Courage is the ability, in this case, to move forward despite fear. And so why is this so important for our kids, for all of us? Well, it helps kids, it helps us to see what's possible. It helps us to, again, just like confidence, just like that foundational belief, move towards reaching our potential, move towards what is the best that we can do within our own unique context. And it helps us, helps our kids, helps us all to persevere when things get hard. And so that's really, really important. If you can kind of picture that, little girl standing on the cusp of a wooden bridge over a ravine on a school field trip, doesn't want to move. Entire class is across the bridge already. But that little girl wants to go across that bridge so very badly. And with time, with encouragement, is able to cross the bridge and feels so, so good about herself. And think about how she would have felt if she had stayed on the other side of the bridge while her classmates enjoyed the rest of the field trip. So just an example that I experienced with one of my kids' classes back in the day when I took them on a third grade field trip to Mount St. Helens. But really saw in that little girl's face the benefit, the value, the power in being courageous in that moment. And sometimes we have to create a scaffold for our kids to act in courageous ways. And that's okay. Knowing our kids, knowing where they need that scaffolding is a really important piece of this puzzle. So fostering courage. How are we doing that? Well, as I kind of mentioned in that example, we're encouraging our kids to face their fears. We're helping our kids to embrace this idea of having to try again when maybe they don't succeed the first time out of the gate. We're helping them by kind of facing their fears to move beyond their comfort zone. And another really important piece that we haven't touched on yet is this idea of teaching our kids to quiet their minds consistently. We want to find a way for our kids to create a quiet space in their minds each and every day. And this will help them to kind of get in touch with this idea of courage. It'll help them to see their strengths. It'll help them manage and navigate through challenge when challenge arises. Because if they're kind of in an escalated space, if any of us are in an escalated space when a challenge hits, we might intensify to the point where we're going to shut down. But if we're consistently practicing this idea of quieting our minds day in, day out as sort of a habit, we're going to be much more ready to face a challenge when it comes up. We're going to be much more able to face a fear, act in a courageous way when one comes up. So that's a really important point. And finally, optimism. Optimism is the ability to harness hope and a feeling of possibility. And that's really, really important in terms of, again, helping our kids, helping us all to navigate challenge, to see the possibility on the other side of challenge. I really, really want to stress that point of a challenge, an obstacle can be in our way, but there's always possibility in some way, some form on the other side of that obstacle. Might not always be easy to get there, but if we can hold on to this notion that it exists out there, we can find a way to move through and beyond the obstacle towards that possibility. So that's really important. And I think really helping our kids to see that is so, so important. And, had an example the other day. One of my boys has just started rowing. He's rowing crew. And his brother rows crew as well, has been doing it for a little bit longer. Um, and the one who just started was in his first regatta a couple weeks ago, and didn't place. His boat didn't place, and he was really disappointed in that. They had a challenge in the boat. Was really, really disappointed. And really, we talked about this idea that, hey, this was your first time out of the gate. This is your first experience with this. Look at what happened to your brother last year. He basically experienced the same type of challenge, and then this year ended up with a medal at the regatta. So, helping him, the one who just started, to hold on to this idea of what's possible down the road, despite a challenge or an obstacle in the moment, has been pretty powerful for him. And I believe can be a powerful experience for all of us. Because if we get bogged down by that not succeeding, that obstacle, that challenge that we face, we're really going to hold ourselves back. We're not going to realize the potential that we have, the possibility that's out there. So this brings me to this point of, why is failing so important? Well, I'll tell you that I really fully believe that failing or not succeeding the first time out of the gate is one of the biggest catalysts we can have for success, for building resilience, for understanding that it's possible to move through and beyond challenge. And related, it takes courage, right? To make mistakes. It takes courage to get back up and try again, to move through these moments, is what builds this foundation for success later on. And, learning from these experiences that don't go as planned, again, is a key to future success. And this is one of the main things that really does build our resilience over time. And, again, taking that risk, taking that step out of our comfort zone is so, so important. Because if we stay in our comfort zone all the time, we're never going to know what's possible for us. We might remain stagnant. And, it's really important for our kids to understand that, and to understand that through watching us perhaps experiment, try new things, not succeed, and try again, and then move forward. Really, really key point, and really brings us back to this idea of belief in self and potential, which can be clouded by, fear of failure, fear of risk, and staying within our comfort zone. And so another point here is this idea of building and helping our kids to build a foundational set of skills in emotional awareness and self-regulation, as well as stress tolerance. This helps in building courage. This helps us to navigate through those moments where we don't succeed, and really relates back to this idea of, having some way of quieting our minds, helping our kids find some way to quiet their minds each and every day. And that can look different for all of us, right? For some, it might be exercise. For some, it might be meditation. For some, it might be a quiet cup of coffee in the backyard. For some, it might be, a conversation with a friend over coffee or on the phone. So the key is finding that way that works for you to quiet your mind will help in building all of these foundational skills for believing in self, believing in possibility. So, kind of summarizing a lot of what we've already talked about, 5 strategies to build self-belief and help our kids to build self-belief. As we've talked about, we want to teach our kids, and we want to be practicing all of these things ourselves as well. But we want to teach our kids to manage their emotions and their reactions to stress. When we do this consistently, as we just mentioned, it's easier to do things which seem hard or out of reach. And we're better able to move through those challenges, those obstacles when they come up. We want to teach our kids to appreciate and embrace individual difference, particularly their own. And this will help them to appreciate their own unique context and build on their own strengths within that context without the distraction of comparison or wanting to be like somebody else. We want to teach our kids, which we've talked about already, that failure is a part of life. And we want to help them to embrace that as an opportunity. And this will really foster belief in self, will help to build confidence, perseverance, grit, all the things that we need to move through and beyond challenge, all the things that we need to be resilient. And we want to teach our kids to recognize their strengths and to find ways to use those strengths in moving forward towards goals, compensating for challenges, when and if challenges come up. And we want to teach our kids to move outside of their comfort zone as often as possible. Trying new things that seem scary and making progress in those areas, despite that fear, will build on that foundational, fundamental belief in self from the inside out. And again, we want that belief to be coming from the inside out because, when belief in self, when confidence is sort of fostered externally, it's not sustainable. That's why we want it to really be intrinsic belief in self, intrinsic belief in the ability to move forward. So now this, I think, is really important. I want to take a few moments here to talk about strategies for parents to care for themselves. Because the reality is that we're not really going to be doing any of this to our best possible ability if we're not caring for ourselves. We're not going to be able to help our kids to foster their own resilience if we're not fostering our own. So a couple things here, taking charge of the aspects of our health which we can control, exercise, healthy diet, quieting our minds, that sort of thing. Really, really important. Again, we want to be practicing, just as we're teaching our kids, to manage our stress response by finding time each day to quiet our minds, to make sure that we're in a level space from a stress response point of view as much as possible so that we're ready to meet a challenge when it arises. We want to take time each day to focus on what's going right, not just the challenges, not just the obstacles. Because when we go to focusing too much on the obstacles, we're sucking energy out of what we've got to offer. And it's a recipe for burnout. We want to focus on possibility for ourselves and for our children. We want to really understand what's possible, and we want to move towards that. We want to have the courage to start. We want to move outside of our comfort zone. And this is important. We really want to be flexible in our thinking. Rarely for our kids, rarely for us as parents, rarely in life is it ever A plus B equals C. So we want to be able to pivot. We want to be able to shift directions when it becomes necessary. Focusing on social connection is a really powerful way for all of us to care for ourselves. Have that cup of coffee with a good friend that you haven't seen in a while. Make that phone call. Carve out that time for social connection, because it's really easy to think, well, in these fast-paced days, we don't have time. But really, if you take that step back and find that moment, the power in that is quite real. And again, we want to focus on what's going right and not just what's going wrong. And a fun way to do that is to sit with your kids each day, at the end of the day, at dinner, what have you, and jot down a list. All of you make a list of 3 to 5 things that went well on the day, during the day, and keep track of that over time. And it's a really fun activity to kind of look back at, to reinforce that, oh yeah, there are things that are going well here, and particularly important when you're feeling bogged down by a challenge. So, what are some primary takeaways here? What do I want to leave you with? I want to leave you with this idea that self-belief for all of us across the lifespan can and is built over time through lived experiences, both good and bad. You know, a lot to learn from the challenges, a lot to learn from the good times. And that really helps us to reinforce our belief in ourselves from the inside out. When we move through and beyond challenge, we become more confident in our ability to overcome obstacles. We become more resilient at a foundational level. And the same is true when we push ourselves outside of our comfort zone and do something that we never thought possible. We build that intrinsic belief in self. And small successes, and this is really, really important for all of us to keep our eye on, add up over time and enhance our sense of self-confidence, self-belief. Really important to be pointing this out to our kids, because it's really easy for them to overlook those small successes and just want the outcome. So that's a really important piece. And then finally, when we do something that feels out of reach, feels scary, when we do something repeatedly in that way, we desensitize to the fears that we might have had and ultimately become more confident, ultimately build a stronger belief in self and possibility. And so in conclusion, the one sort of thing that I really hope you'll take away from this, well, among other things, but the kind of fundamental thing is, please believe in possibility for your child and believe in possibility for yourself. There's always possibility despite the challenge. And if you want to check out any of my work or books or podcasts or what have you, please take a look at my website, which is katelundspeaks.com. Thanks so much.
Oh, technology. Sorry. I couldn't find my mute button or unmute button. Kate, that was fabulous. Fabulous. Give me, people that are listening in the chat, give Dr. Kate some love on a scale of 1 to 10. How helpful was this? I'd give it like 100,000 personally. So I would give it above and beyond the number 10. And if anybody has any questions, put them in the chat stream as well, and we'll ask Dr. Kate, to further expand. I want to bring up one of the things that you spoke about, and that was the immediate importance of doing your best.
Mm-hmm.
And that perseverance and helping your children know that, whatever they do, do your best. There's a wonderful quote by Martin Luther King, which is often overlooked by all his other 90 gazillion wonderful quotes because he's so amazing. And I'm going to just read it because I have to read it because I will get it wrong if I don't. If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. And it's just such a wonderful quote because it is just impressing on humanity. Whatever job you do,
Mhm.
do it to the best of your ability.
Right.
And then learn from what you just did and see if you can even do it better.
Yes. Yes. That's
And
absolutely right. Yes.
there's so many, I have like all these little notes I've highlighted yellow that I want to talk about because there's just so much, like endless gold nugget, valuable tips, strategies, thoughts that
Yeah.
you didn't think of. And like I said, I am imagining that those who thought maybe this was just a talk about kids
Mhm.
realize it was so not a
Right.
talk about kids.
Right.
It was a
Because that
talk about us.
exactly. Because that's the thing. Like all of these principles apply to all of us across the lifespan. I mean, all of them, and it's just so happens that I've written, through the lens of kids, quite a bit, but it really applies to all of us.
Absolutely. And ultimately, what you teach to children, you are working on mastering yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Because if you can be the teacher, you're
Mhm.
also gaining all this knowledge, which is why it's also great if a child is struggling and it's something you've gone over before.
Mhm.
And so many parents will just get frustrated, like, oh, you're asking me that again. I just told you that, you
Right.
know? So if they ask you again, turn that question around and ask them.
Yes.
Okay, so good question. Can you explain to me why that is?
Yes, exactly. And that again is another example of coming from the inside out, right? Internalizing what it is they're trying to do from the inside out. And that's so key.
Yes, because if they can teach you, they know it. It's even
Mhm.
like with down to basic homework. And they're
Yes.
like, I don't know how to do this. And parents so often jump in to save them. Oh, well, here's the answer, blah, 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 blah. When they
Right.
should say, why don't you teach me what you've learned?
Hmm.
And let's you be the teacher, I'll be the student, and you show me how you think it should be.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Because that again is reinforcing from the inside out. And, I've seen here in our house with our boys, actually, there is this idea of over tutoring or what have you. One of them, we realized he was struggling in math a little bit, had a math tutor, realized he wasn't internalizing the process, right? And couldn't do it away from the tutor. So they cut back on that and really reinforce the practice piece and the engagement piece.
Yes, and I think the comment that just came up related to that, I still have my temp job that I took 40 years ago because it turned out that I loved it and they love me. And
Yeah.
so it's even like, to the point, where are you going to start? How
Mhm.
do I start? And often in today's society, people think, well, kids think out of
Mhm.
college, they should be getting that salary. They should be doing this. They should be doing that. And things are below their ability. And
Right.
that just shows that in taking the first step, well, let me just try something out and
Mhm.
do a temp job.
Yes. Yep.
She was able to have a career.
Yeah.
That temp job is still going on 40 years later.
Right. And such a powerful example of what's possible, sort of recognizing what's possible once you take that first step.
Exactly. I just love this whole conversation, and we could go on. I have to check the time. Oh, see, we're running out of time.
Hmm.
So, are there any other questions that because I think I'm like making questions and taking over other people's questions, but we're running out of time. Dr. K, just a beyond valuable discussion. And I truly hope that you all were taking notes and you take this not just into your relationship with your child if you're a parent,
Mhm.
but more importantly, in your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you can, apply all of these things to your life, you will be a great role model to others. And the whole point of this summit is to make everyone realize that we are all role models to children,
Yes.
not just parents, not just teachers, everyone in every role of life that walks the streets.
Mhm.
And it's important to start from the inside of us.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
what's going to start showing on the outside of us.
Yes. Precisely.
So, Dr. Kate, and you have a podcast.
I do. Yes. It's called The Optimized Mind, and it's out there on all of the podcast platforms. And yeah,
And it's scrolling across the street.
There it is. Yes.
What a
yes,
perfect timing that was.
Cool. Excellent. Yes. It'd be awesome to, yeah.
So learn more. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. So
Yeah.
learn more. You are working this stage of your life right here is working off of all that you know. So if something's not working, then it's time to learn more, which is why we need to learn something new every day. And I know you guys learned something new today. So thank you, Dr. Kate.
Well, thank you
You're
so
wonderful. Again, Dr. Kate was on my podcast, Pumped Up Parenting Podcast, season 4, episode 10. It actually just aired. So check that out as well on the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. And I just knew from the moment we met, she had to be part of this discussion on the International Day of Calm and the Day of Calm Summit. So thank you for being here, Dr. Kate. Sincerely grateful for your time and your impact on everyone. Please follow her and listen to more, because it's always going to be something you need to know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So we're getting ready for our next speaker. Before we do, I want to give you a little knowledge about the school that we're supporting in Uganda. If you've been in our previous sessions, we really encourage you to please, if you are loving this summit, share it out. But if you're also loving it, let's help the kids that need our help, which is all of them. But there are some kids that haven't had the opportunities we have, that haven't been able to do things that we get to do, that their abundance is so limited compared to our abundance. And that's these kids at the Brilliant Nursery and Primary School in Uganda. So we are supporting them through our Rescue a School initiative. And our intent is to build them permanent buildings, give them the funds they need to support their teachers, support their students, and create their dream of having a nourishing, compassionate, productive, cooperative learning environment for these kids that would not have it if this school didn't exist. So can we run the video real quick before we bring up our next guest?
Viewers all over the world, good morning. We are here at Brilliant Nursery and Primary School. Thank you so much for watching this short clip.
And we're back. And we're back with one of my favorite humans that roam the earth, and that is Saurav Atri. And he comes here all the way from Singapore, and he will be teaching on what he is beyond an expert at. I don't know what level's beyond expert, but he's at that level on how to resolve relationship challenges using your strengths. And this is so key once again in every walk of life. We have relationships everywhere. We have coworker relationships, we have friendships, we have family relationships, we have parent child, teacher student, goes on and on and on. Every time you connect with another person, you are creating a relationship. And this is why we have created this summit. This is the purpose behind my belief that if we are intentional about how we relate to others, then we are giving those strengths to the next person. When we shine, we let other people shine. So we're going to talk about today with Saurav all about relationships and what you need to know and what you need to recognize within yourself that you can bring to a relationship. So Saurav, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, Celia. I'm just absolutely inspired by looking at those beautiful visuals from the school in Uganda and all the great work that you're doing, and the Day of Calm Association is doing as well. Really transforming the world, and all the speakers that have come before me. It's just really, really enlightening to hear all of them from their perspectives as well there. So good morning to all of you who are joining in. Good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you're in. So I see Kaiser, LR Kaiser joining in. Good morning to you, Pilar, Barbara, many others joining in. So I would love for you to go to the chat and write down where are you dialing in from. Good to see you all. I'm dialing in from Singapore. And today, over the next hour, we'll be diving deep into understanding human relationships. And I'll share some, key insights, but let's make this into a conversation. I truly believe that transformation happens through a conversation, not a presentation. So while I do have some information to share with you, but what I would want to make this work is really go deep into having this as a conversation. So let's jump into the chat and write down where are you joining in from. Hi. It's Zar from Philippines. Good to see you as well. Welcome. And what we want to create for you, Zar, today is a little bit of malasakit. So I hope you know what that means. So it's going to be exciting for us to explore that as well. I see Mr. M. Johnson joining in from tropical Chicago, USA. Well, we have similar weather in Singapore as well. It's sunny and nice and tropical here as well. Good to see you all. So let's, as people are joining in, sharing the comments, and let's jump into it as well of what we will talk about over the next hour. So that's a little bit about me. My name is Saurav Atri, Saurav, and I'm repeating my name because my name can be easily mispronounced. I have been called sort of. That doesn't work too well for me. So if Saurav is difficult to pronounce, you can call me Atri. Atri works fine for me as well there. Based in Singapore, and really passionate about human behavior and just human relationship. That's where I'm building my expertise over the last 15 years, and I continue to spend time in growing in that specific field as well there. So here's what to expect in the Day of Calm. We'll talk about how to resolve relationship challenges using strengths. And here's what that flow would look like. So question for all of you. Imagine a life where you're surrounded by people who bring you joy and happiness every day. Won't that be an amazing life? Today, we'll find the answer for that specific question. How do you create that? And the answer you seek is going to be inside. Let's unpack what that would look like. So here's the agenda. We'll talk about 3 things, and this is where it'll be really insightful only if you participate in this conversation with me. So use the chat, put in your comments. I can see all those chats flooding in. So I would love for you to share your thoughts so we can build on it and really make this into an experience. So we'll talk about 3 things today. Relationship issues, how do we resolve them? Talk about strengths, what does that mean? We talk about human connection and also talk about human experience. So these are 3 things I'll unpack. I've got some nomenclatures there, SOG, PECT, and 4 stages of human experience, what that does look like. So we'll unpack all those 3 things as we go through this journey today. So let's talk about relationship issues first. And this is a question that I have for all of you. I would love for you to talk about and share in the chat, what do you think are the different types of relationship challenges do we face every day? Let's go to the chat and write on your thoughts. And I would love to hear Celia as well, if you want to share back your thoughts. What do you think could be the different types of relationship challenges we face?
Sorry, I have to unmute. That button is so tricky. So I think for me, a lot of relationship challenges that people face every day is there is competition that presents itself. There is trust and respect that I think are key in relationships and often get lost in relationships, and people work to rebuild. And I think communication is huge. Almost every couple, family that I work with, communication is first on their list. They either don't communicate or they communicate in a very aggressive way and not a productive way. So I think those are key in relationships that they face every day.
Absolutely. And you talked about this, right? Communication issues between people, trust issues between people, communication issues between people. So we start to unpack a lot of these relationship challenges. And I would love to hear from the people logging in and listening in. What are the relationship challenges do you face on a regular basis? Go to the chat and write on your thoughts. And this is where fundamentally I want us to go to the deep source of what are the different types of relationship issues. Before we can solve something, we need to understand what that is, right? As Einstein said, if I have an hour to solve a problem, I would first spend the first 55 minutes trying to find what questions to ask. And if I ask the right questions to myself, all I would need is 5 minutes to solve that specific problem. So what my question to you is, let's unpack the problem first so that we can solve and resolve it correctly. So here's a thought for us to dig deeper. I say proper communication is what I'm hearing from people. Think about relationship issues. See, there's 4 types of relationship issues that happen. First is a relationship issue people have with themselves, with self. We all have a relationship with our own selves as well, isn't it? We get up in the morning, we have thoughts, we have feelings, we have emotions, we look in the mirror, we have certain expectation of our own life. So I say fundamentally, first is the relationship itself. If your relationship with self is not working well, it does impact relationship with others also, isn't it? So first and foremost, we will unpack what are the relationship with self and what issues could comprise from there. Second is relationship with partnerships. See, let's spoke about this, right? You may have improper communication with somebody else that would create friction between you and somebody else, between a parent and a child, between a husband and a wife, between 2 colleagues, one-to-one. So talk about partnership, relationship issues. Third is people have relationship issues with groups. So one group does not get along with another group, or you may have some, let's call them ideological differences with a group of people. That can create some relationship issues as well. Now, we can slice this onion in different ways or peel this onion in different ways. The point I'm trying to go with is the identities that interact with each other that creates those relationship issues. And the fourth one is relationship issues with the existence itself. And what each of these 4 areas leads into is, think about this. When there are issues with self, it leads to creating self-doubt, insecurities, mental health issues, codependency on other people, where you are reliant on somebody else to fulfill your emotional needs. And if you don't feed that, then you feel incomplete. And you create a lot more issues and drama in your own life because of codependency as well. Fourth is low self-esteem. And then I say emotional dysregulation. We go through these pangs when the relationship we have with ourselves is not good. So first and foremost, we need to identify what relationship issues happen with our own self and why they happen. And if we have to build a great life, we need to start solving those relationship issues that we have with our own self, with our own identity. Next is relationship issues with partnerships. And that's where, to Celia's point, that trust, communication, these are fundamental elements, building blocks of relationships out there. It could lead to manipulation between relationships when there's lack of trust. It could lead into conflict between two people out there, friction, even extreme emotion like hatred can start creeping in as well there. Fourth is group. What happens when there's issues with groups? Isolation. It leads to discrimination. It leads to bullying, harassment. It leads to exclusion. So you start to see how these relationship issues manifest in our life. And now you can see what's happening globally is war. When there are fundamental relationship issues between groups of people, it can lead to war. And we've seen that happen also out there. Next, existence. And this is fundamental. When people have lost hope in their life, they start fighting with the existence itself, whether it leads to depression or anxiety or substance abuse or risk-taking behaviors. Yes, even social isolation. So first and foremost, we have to categorize where are these relationship issues are coming from, the source. Otherwise, what happens is we see two people fighting and we try to fix what I call the symptoms, but not the root cause. Sometimes those are not the real issues that the person is fighting with somebody else. What we don't realize is a person may be fighting with themselves, and that is manifesting in that conversation they're having with somebody else. Only if you get to have a deep insight into a person's brain and their thoughts and their mind and realize how much struggle they're facing in their day-to-day life, would you then treat them a little bit more compassion in that conversation? Because what they're saying is not what they mean. There's a fundamental, deeper issue they're trying to resolve, isn't it? You're just a bouncing board, a sounding board, and a way to share their frustrations out. That's what happens. So it's important to know what is the real source of issues that could creep into human relationships. Go to the chat and write down what issues from these four have you noticed in people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, where you see relationship issues creeping in. Is it issues with self? Is it issues with partnerships? Is it issue with group or existence? Let's go and hear your thoughts also out there. And Celia, I would love to bring you back in and to just to hear your thoughts also as you deal with a lot of kids and parents. Where do you see a lot of these issues coming from these four areas? Celia?
For me, definitely in self. For parents, I believe the self is it always starts with self. So I think the self is so primary. And then their ability to form a productive, cooperative partnership with their partner, their adult partner, and that being a model for their children, and with their children, the same thing. I feel parents are quick to mistrust. Parents are quick to judge and criticize. And that separates and divides their family, does not unify their family. And so that, I think, are very common issues with the relationship between parent and child and parent and parent.
Absolutely. Really well said, Celia. And this is where we're going to unpack deeper is how do we stop that mistrust that happens both with, in partnership with the parent-child, in work colleagues, in husband-wife, because we'll talk later on also about this. Trust is the foundational building blocks of a relationship. If it doesn't exist, nothing matters beyond that if there's no trust in a relationship. So let's dig deeper into these areas and we'll start talking about human connection. We've now realized the source can happen from each of these four places. The relationship a person has with themselves, with others, with a group of people, or with existence in general. So let's dig deeper into now, why does it happen? We talked about what happens if we see it manifest in the outcome perspective, whether it's fight, conflicts, it's arguments, debates. We see all these issues crop up, but we have to go deeper to the why it happens. And the secret of that lies in a human connection. To understand human connection, we have to go deeper into what curates a human connection also. So let's go deeper. I say human connection is curated through four things. What are those four things of a human connection? First is perception. And here's a question for all of you. Are you guys open for a quick social experiment to sort of make this perception a reality for all of us? Give me a yes in the chat if you guys are open for a social experiment with me right now. So we can learn a little bit more about perception. You guys open for it? Give me a yes. I see one person saying yes. Go to the chat and write down a yes if you're open for a social experiment with me. I see Kaiser, Ikstar, hey, it's Ixar sort of sharing their perspectives there. Excellent. So question for all of you right now. I've been speaking for the past 18 minutes or so. Question was there a painting behind my head? Was it a painting behind my head? Go to the chat and write down the answer. Was it a painting behind my head? All this while. Was it a painting behind my head? Write a yes or a no. What do you guys think? And I would love to hear all those people who said yes earlier to give me an answer. Was it a painting behind my head all this while? This is fundamental. Dr. Seema says no. Kaiser says yes. If yes, Kaiser, what color was it? Pilar says yes. Hey, Ixa says yes. What color was the painting if there was a painting behind my head? Let's hear from you. What color was the painting if you thought there was a painting behind my head? I'm seeing a lot of yeses coming in. White. What else? No idea. What color was the painting if there was a painting? So here it is. It's reddish in color, two shoes in the background black. You know what just happened here? Here's what just happened here. While all of you are looking at me right now, what you're seeing is purely a manifestation of your 5 senses sending signals to your brain, and that creates an inverted image inside it. Isn't that how eyes work? Light falls on retina, creates an inverted image behind it, sends a signal to the brain, and that's how we perceive life. That is human perception. The challenge with human perception is that we are also locked into how we see the world, that we also assume how I am seeing the world is how others are seeing, which is not true. So, and this is what we fight about in human relationship. One person says, oh, I'm pretty sure there was a painting. There was not a painting. It was blue in color, red in color, yellow in color, white in color. And we fight about those things. Why? Because we all see the world from each of our own unique perspectives, our own perceptions. So human connection is based on human perception. When that human perception gets aligned, the connection becomes stronger. And we'll talk more about this also. And let's look at the next one. The next part of a human connection is expectation. Human perception leads to expectation, which leads to communication, and that leads to trust, which are the foundational building blocks of human connection. So I say the source of our perception is our, let's call it programming or personality traits, our own strengths. They shape the way we see the world, how we perceive the world. And we'll talk more about this as we go forward and how that is tied to expectation. The source of our expectation is actually perception. How we perceive the world also creates mental shortcuts, heuristics, what we call perceptions, because of which those expectations get created out there. Communication is essentially an exchange of information between two individuals, if the communication is happening between two people, for example. So we'll talk more what that looks like. And communication is not just between two human beings, it also happens between two living beings. And we'll talk more on that as we go forward. And finally, we say the building blocks of trust is communication. So we'll talk how do we build that trust through effective, efficient communication as we go forward. So let's talk about perception first. The topic of today was always about how can we use trends to resolve relationship issues. We talked about relationship issues happen between self, others, groups, as well as existence. Now the question is, how does perception play a role in creating those issues between human beings? So let's do an example here. So here's an example for all of you. Think of these as behavioral traits. This is a psychometric assessment called Clifton Strengths, a fantastic tool that really dissects human personality into 34 areas. And you can see some of these perspectives out here. So what does that really mean? So let's take the example of context. So I say context is a perspective of somebody else who's fascinated by past information. They love retro, they love history, they enjoy, they make sense of the past of the present by understanding the past. So tell me, if your child or your spouse has high context as their behavioral trait, what do you think you can offer a person with high context in a conversation for them to feel fulfilled, for them to start building a relationship with you? How do you fulfill a context need? Let's go to the chat and write down your answers. Go to the chat and write your answers. If there's a person with high context as their personality trait, what does context mean? Somebody who's fascinated by background information. What would you say you will offer that person in a meeting or in a conversation for that person to feel fulfilled? Go to the chat and write down your answers. I see facts of the past. Facts of the past. And here's a perspective I'll share with you as well here. So let me give you another visual of what that could look like. Let's see if I can put this in front of you. Quick reference card. I hope it shows up. There you go. Let me know if you can see this. Here's an example of a quick reference card. So here it is, right? So what does context mean? Context is this. Somebody who's fascinated by context is they enjoy thinking about the past and they understand the present by researching history. So what do you offer this person who's got context high? Relevant background and information. You give this person background information, you have this person fulfilled right there. Are you with me, everyone? That's the power of human personality. Now, what happens when you fulfill that need? It releases a chemical in their brain called dopamine. The moment you fulfill that need of context, a personality need, the person feels great. And because you've made them feel great, suddenly they start building better trust with you because you just fulfill that person's need. Let's go deeper, right? Say you have a different person with no context, but that person has, say, futuristic instead. Futuristic, yes. So what do you offer a person with high futuristic for that person to be at their best? What would you guys say? Go to the chat and write down your answers. You're a person with high futuristic. What do you offer that person with high futuristic for that person to be at their best? For that person to build a better relationship with you? Go to the chat and write in your answers. Talk about the next 5-year goals. Absolutely. What else? Let's hear more thoughts. Possible future goals, correct? What else? Technology, EDM music, yes. Elon Musk, right? Mars, goals, plan. Absolutely. You spot on there. Now, if you start telling somebody with high futuristic all that happened in the past, you'll bore them to death. They don't really care too much about the past. They want to move forward, not look backwards. So, but if you tell them what's going to happen 2 years from now, get them to share their vision, my God, you've just got them excited. Their brain is filled up with dopamine. And because you're the person who's feeding that need for them, they feel great. They start coming closer to you emotionally, relationally, and building a human connection to you. That is human chemistry. When somebody else fulfills your specific need consistently over time, that's human chemistry. Now, think about a different person, say who has no context, no futuristic, he has or she has adaptability, or they have adaptability. So you tell me, what do you offer somebody with high adaptability for that person to be at their best? What would you guys say? Adaptability. Somebody who's here and now. They don't think too far ahead in the future. Rather, you start telling somebody with high adaptability what's going to happen 2 years from now. Like, are you crazy? We live in a COVID world. Who's seen 2 years from now? All I care about is what's happening today. So they'll focus on what's here and now. Rather, you start planning things way in advance. They will get frustrated because they'll get boxed in. So what they need to know is, what are we doing today? Rather, they don't want to know and they want to be surprised. They love surprises of the daily life. They treat every day like an adventure. Every day is a new day and they want to live it like that. They hate monotonous days from that perspective. Now, this is very important. We talk about trust as a fundamental element right there. Let me help you reframe trust completely. You tell me, this is important. A lot of you deal with these situations. Say your spouse has high analytical. How do you build trust with high analytical spouse or a manager or a boss? What would you guys say? How do you build trust? with someone with high analytical? They'll be very skeptical, first of all. So what can you offer? Absolutely, Dr. Seema. You offer them data, facts, and logic. What else? Let's kind of hear from others. Kaiser, XR, details, absolutely, Celia. Facts, fundamentals. And sometimes they may come across as they don't trust in you. It's not about you, they don't trust in you. They're just seeking to fulfill their need. You fulfill that person's need, they feel great, their trust automatically comes through. So fundamentally, I would want you to look at these 34 traits of human beings as 34 needs of human beings. When their needs are fulfilled, people feel great. When their needs are not fulfilled, they feel disappointed in their life. And that is the power of human perception, because our perception is colored by how we see the world, our own personality traits. So somebody who is high intellection is locked into their head thinking a lot. Somebody who's high empathy is always paying attention to the details of other people out there. Absolute Johnson, data, absolutely evidence, they need that information. You feed that information, they feel great. Perfect. So the real challenge in human relationships is that we are all brainwashed by the golden rule, which says treat people the way you want to be treated, isn't it? Treat people the way you want to be treated. But tell me, you got high context and you want to treat people with high context, you start giving them all background information. Someone like me who's got high futuristic will get switched off. I don't need that information. So what would a world look like if we stop treating people the way we want to be treated and start treating people the way they would want to be treated? That means we need to know what their needs are, what their perceptions are, what their perspectives are. Isn't it? That's the fundamental element of human nature. So I say, when two people fight, it's not that the whole relationship or the whole personalities are conflicting with each other. People are fighting because one trait, one need is being conflicted with somebody else's different need. And that's what creates human complications. So here's a visual of that to make sense of it very easily. Look at, say, somebody with high command. What does the command need for them to feel fulfilled? They want to be challenged. They want to sort of, let me put this up on the screen. I don't know if you can see my screen yet. Let's put this visual up on the screen for you. Let me know if you can see it as well. And if you can push it forward, that'll be great. All right, so see, have a look at this chart again. Let me know if you can see the chart. If not, I'll see how I can push it forward. Okay, great. So let's push the chart also on the screen here. So command is a trait of a human being. And that command trait loves challenges, love conflicts. They want to debate, they want to discuss. This is what a command wants. They have presence, they take control of the situation, and they make decisions. Challenges and conflicts is what they seek, yes. So that's what a command needs. Now, if a command is interacting with a harmony, look at what a harmony trait individual looks like. What does harmony need? They look for consensus, they look for agreement. They don't enjoy conflict. Naturally, it creates friction. And by the way, don't think that command will ultimately bulldoze the point of view of harmony and take over. It does not mean that the command is going home feeling fulfilled also, because they don't want to take over. Rather, they want to be challenged, because what they seek is clarity. And they believe that without you challenging me, how would I get clarity from that situation? So neither the command, even though you might feel that that person has won and they've gotten their way, that they don't go home feeling fulfilled. They feel, what a terrible partnership that this is. Nobody challenges me, you know. And neither a harmony who's compromised, who's given in, ends up feeling great in that relationship also, because they are not getting what they need. They are in a friction situation because the harmony believes that friction does not lead to any positive outcome. So they create consensus agreement for better synergy. I call them, they look for emotional efficiency between people. And they feel consensus agreement creates that. So now you can see, right? Fundamentally, human beings are different. Every human being is different than somebody else. The odds of two people having the same top 5 perspectives or top 5 strengths as somebody else is 1 in 33 million people. So first and foremost, you have to pause and ask, who am I? That's where the relationship itself happens. So I say, if you take a psychometric assessment like Clifton Strengths, it gives you your own top 5 perspectives, top 5 strengths. What you'll realize is that those are your top 5 needs. And at any point in time in your life, you're feeling frustrated When your self relationship is not good, just pause and ask, which of my top 5 needs are not being fulfilled? And you'll get your answer. And the days when you're feeling great and fulfilled and successful, you should ask this question again, which of my top 5 strengths are being fulfilled? And you'll get your answers as well there. So that's why I say fundamentally, strengths is a language of humanity, the language of understanding human nature. How do people think, feel, and behave? So when two people fight, it's not the whole personality fighting, it's one trait fighting with another trait. There is a point of pain between them. You resolve that point of pain, then that creates magic between a human relationship. Go to the chat and write down any insights and aha moments you've discovered so far, looking at your own personal relationships and issues that people you may have had in the past with human beings also out there. So responsibility, this is a very important one. Responsibility is the top 2 strengths in the world. What ends up happening is we do so much for others. Why? Because the fundamental need of responsibility is to be trusted. So they do things for others to feel trusted, to build trust. But what they don't realize is the other person may not even expect it from you. So aren't you imposing your responsibility on them, hoping they will appreciate you for all the extra work that you do for them? What if they don't trust? How does it matter to them? It's not meaningful for them. If you're doing it only because your need is being fulfilled, but their need may not be being fulfilled. So be aware, sometimes we impose our perceptions of the world around us, and that creates issues. So treat people the way they want to be treated. That requires us to go and ask, not assume. Don't jump to any conclusion. Always ask. So that's a fundamental element around human issues, challenges. Let's dig deeper into how this could manifest in our day-to-day life and how can we resolve those issues out there. So we talked about context, we looked at futuristic, we looked at analytical, we looked at how these fundamental needs create relationship fulfillment or relationship challenges. And by the way, these traits start forging in human brain at very early in the childhood also. Up till 15 years age, they are still developing. So you'll have bigger blocks of these traits, but you can start to see evidence of these themes at a very early age also. The challenge happens that parents have been grooming their kids up till 15 years age or early teen years, and they think I can still groom them. But by the time they hit 15 years of age, their mind has mostly formulated. Now they're like, I call them cemented. And then the parents continue to do what they've been trying to do is shape. But now you start to see that rebellious behavior because of course, hormones, but also personality traits fighting back. So I say, what if we start treating 15-year-olds like adults and have conversation with them like adults? When we start seeing their personality traits and enhancing the best in them, the good in them, we start to get the best out of people. The challenge with the world right now is we are all fixated on trying to fix what's wrong with people. But what would a world look like if we focus on what is right with people versus what's wrong about them? That could really change the way we deal with human beings every single day. So instead of going home and fighting with your spouse and child and finding what's wrong about them, what you're looking for wrong is just that they're different than you. That's all that wrong is in them. Instead, go look for what's right about them and enhance more. Whatever you will give attention to will grow. Whatever you will give attention to will grow. And I say the fundamental aspect that we need to pay attention to in a human relationship is trust. Because that's a fundamental building block of a relationship. Without trust, we don't even accept appreciation. I'll give you an example. See somebody in your family or in your workplace you don't like at all, that person. And suddenly out of the blue, that person comes and starts appreciating you. How would you feel? Go to the chat and write down your answers. Somebody you don't like starts appreciating you out of the blue. How would you feel? Go to the chat and write down your answers. Go to the chat and write down your answers. Changes the viewpoint about them? Yeah. That's one part. Mostly feel something is suspicious. What's going on? How is this person who has always been bad-mouthing me suddenly is coming and saying all these wonderful things about us, isn't it? We become skeptical. So even though that person may have a genuine intent, they may try to do the right thing. They genuinely may mean it also. But because of our past experiences, we become skeptical, isn't it? We don't believe what they say. So I say, without trust, we don't even appreciate goodness of others. So I say fundamentally, what's critical in a human relationship is to build trust. Now, let me ask you all, what is trust? If trust is such an important aspect of human relationship, we need to know what trust is, isn't it? So what is trust? Go to the chat and write down your answers. What do you think is trust for you? What does trust mean for you? What is trust? Maybe I'll bring in Celia as well for a quick banter here. Celia, what would you say is trust for you, and how do you see trust manifest in human relationships that you've noticed between parents and kids, and between parents and couples?
I think trust, and by the way, Saurav, since I always put the emphasis on the wrong syllable, and I apologize. And actually, I like the sort of comparison, not only because it's hysterical, but because it reminds me where the emphasis goes on your name. Because people as always interpret Celia as Julia. So I feel you. I feel trust is a huge part of trust in other people is integrity. And for me, integrity is huge. For relationships and the clients that I help, when integrity is broken, trust is too. And I feel like that is a key in developing that relationship, that belief that a person is saying what they are actually going to do, or the truth that they are going to withhold, that they're going to hold.
Well said there. And this is where it becomes important, right? When we talk about trust and integrity, right? I ask a simple question to people. Is trust external or is trust internal? Is trust external or is trust internal? What would you guys say? This is for everyone to answer. Is trust external or is it trust internal? Think about it. This is why I want to go deeper. So have you ever noticed sometimes that, you're sitting down having a reflective thought and you're thinking about a person that you have a relationship with, and suddenly a thought crosses your mind where you become suspicious about them? Maybe I noticed what this person doing. Does that break down the trust briefly? Do you go and check on things that you should be checking on, for example, because a thought crossed your mind, isn't it? So even though you've not had an interaction with somebody else, just a thought could change your emotion of trust towards that person, isn't it? So can I say trust is an internal phenomenon? So can I say trust is a feeling? Yes. So if trust is a feeling, it's 100% your business because it's internal to you. So if it's 100% your business, because feeling is nothing but a chemical reaction in the brain. It's a biological process. That's what a feeling is. A small trigger happens in the brain. There's a small organ in the middle of our brain, in the middle of a hippocampus right here, called the amygdala, where it's think of it like the chemical engine of the brain. It generates all the chemicals that we create different feelings, emotions, sensations in our body. That's where the source is, right? So I say trust essentially is a release of a chemical called oxytocin in the brain. Oxytocin. You can research, Google about this, oxytocin. Now, if you can figure out what generates oxytocin, can't you build faster trust, isn't it? So let me reframe the whole concept of trust. I say trust is nothing but expectations fulfilled. What's trust? Go and write down the answers. What is trust? Expectations fulfilled. I want you to all write it down, because if you write it down, it'll stick with you forever. What is trust? Expectations fulfilled. That's trust. Where do these expectations come from? From our own strengths. So if I'm analytical and I'm seeking data, facts, and logic, why did this happen? And people go and fulfill that need, I would start trusting that person. Why? Because that need being fulfilled first releases dopamine in my brain. And if the person again fulfills that need next time I see them, then it generates oxytocin in my brain. And that's where the trust formation starts to happen. So this is how it works. The brain is let's call it, it's a lazy organ of the body. Well, and I'll tell you, there's a fact behind it, why it wants to be lazy, because brain consumes over 80% of your energy of the body. That's why you'll notice if chess players play for 3 hours, they get so exhausted as if you just ran a marathon. Why? Because the brain is consuming energy. You think about this, you're studying for an exam, you just gave an exam, how tired you guys feel when you come after an exam, right? Because the consumption of energy by the brain. Now, the brain is also a very efficient organ. So what it tries to do, it tries to build shortcuts to conserve energy. That's why you'll notice there's some things that is autopilot. In this great researcher, his name is Dr. Daniel Kahneman, he breaks it down, your brain, to two parts: system 1 thinking and system 2 thinking. System 1 thinking is your autopilot brain, which is basically, what is 4 multiplied by 2? You'll give me an answer of 8 subconsciously, because it's system 1, autopilot, fast. But the moment I ask you what is 24 multiplied by 572, your brain goes, oh, too hard, I don't want to do it. Not that you can't do it. You can take a pen and paper, you know exactly how to do it, but your brain does not want to do it. Why? It requires more energy. It's not part of your autopilot behavior. Actually, this calculation is part of your system 2 thinking, which is more conscious, analytical, requires more effort. So the reason I'm saying this is, think of your personality as system 1 thinking, autopilot behavior. And those needs become autopilot behavior also. So if subconsciously you observe the world and people keep feeding your needs, you start trusting the environment. The moment somebody comes up there who does not fulfill your need, boom, that's where the trust picks up. That's why we talked about integrity. What is integrity? Go deeper. It's basically doing what you say you do. Authenticity. So when you say you'll do something, you are raising an expectation of somebody. Yes. And if you don't fulfill it, the person says, hold on, last time this person did this for me, this time they haven't, something is wrong. The brain goes into a question mark mode. Then it'll be skeptical watching. This person fulfill or not fulfill my need right there. So to build a great relationship, we need to first capture the expectation of that person and then fulfill that expectation for that trust to happen. Now, here's also fundamentally how expectations work. This is important to know. Let's take you on a journey and experience. Say you go to a nice 5-star hotel. You walk in, there's a box of chocolates, a bottle of champagne, a spa voucher. How would you guys feel walking into that hotel? Feel great, isn't it? Why? Because you walked in, you had A expectation, and the hotel gave you A+ expectations. When people in life around you exceed your expectations, we feel delighted, we feel great. Yes. Why? Because you got more than what you asked for. Now tell me, the second time you go to the same hotel, this time also you get a box of chocolates, a bottle of champagne, a spa voucher. How would you feel the second time around? This time you may feel good, but not great. Why? Because you already expected. So what happened? First time you were expecting A, the hotel gave you A+. Now your expectation got raised. And the hotel now met your expectations. So you feel good, but not great because it was expected. The third time you go to the same hotel, this time there is no box of chocolates, no bottle of champagne, no spa voucher. How do you feel the third time around? Disappointed, isn't it? Why? Because now the hotel gave you standard operating procedure, but your expectations stayed here. And this is the fundamental element of relationship issues. When people and life around you don't meet your expectations, we feel disappointed in those relationships, those partnerships, isn't it? The challenge with human expectations, it's a moving marker in life. It's a moving marker in life. So I say, when people have issues with themselves, low self-esteem, self-doubt, is why? Because they have not fulfilled their own expectation. They were aiming here, they didn't get there, they feel disappointed. Yes. So it's important to build, and that's why the mental health crisis really accelerated over the last 2 years or 3 years, because people were expecting fundamentals. I can travel, I can do this, I can do that, and those expectations were taken away from them. Disappointments. So first and foremost, to create a great mental well-being is to build expectation of things that are within our own span of control. That's the foundation. If you can build your expectation of things that you can 100% control, and by the way, no, you can't control other people's actions, behaviors, reactions, feelings. All you can control is your own reactions, your own feelings, your own behaviors, and that requires a lot of mastery as well. If you can do that, you can create a pathway to joy and happiness for yourself. Then you're not dependent on those expectations to be fulfilled by the outside world. Rather, you can liberate yourself from frustrations of the outside world and rather be helpful towards others to do the same also. That requires to really go deep to know who you are and then help others in that partnership by understanding the expectation, fulfilling and partnering with them in a deeper level. That's where it starts to elevate to a whole different level there. So what is trust? expectation fulfilled? What is respect, which all of us seek in a relationship also with others? Respect is expectations exceeded. When somebody goes over and beyond to fulfill your needs, that generates respect, isn't it? So what is respect? Expectations exceeded. That's respect. That's how we can build great partnerships with people out there. And this is where communication becomes an important ingredient. A lot of our communication we think happens only through verbal communication, but actually it's only a small part of the interaction that happens. A lot of our communication happens non-verbally also and subconsciously also. So don't underestimate the importance of exchange of information that happens. The virtual world, unfortunately, has restricted the amount of communication we have because now only two of our senses are involved, the eyes and the ears. The touch, the taste, the smell, those are subconscious information gathering that happens there. And what that creates is all this information goes into the brain, stores as a memory. But what's even more important, that memory gets wrapped up by an emotion, how you felt in the moment. So next time, say you guys see me again, and if I give you some insightful information and say, oh, I know Saurav, what happens in the brain? Your brain will do a Google search. Oh, I know Saurav. And if last time I give you valuable information out there, your brain will go, your brain is now in expectation mode. Oh, he'll give us some new insights, new words of wisdom. And if I fulfill that, that will start building oxytocin, trust. And if it's beyond what you expected, it starts generating respect right there. So be aware that when it's two pieces of information, two senses involved, shallow memory. 5 senses involved, deep memory. That goes really deep into communication. So I say, whenever you're communicating people, think about how do I capture more information from a person by staying present in the moment. Don't let your eyes get into your head, stuck thinking, because you're missing out all the facial expression, body language that person is also giving information on. Don't miss out the touch, the taste, the environment, the smell. All those are very key elements of capturing information and communicating effectively with people also out there. And this is where I say that starts to curate a human experience. So what is a human experience? Think of human experience as a journey. And that journey starts on 4 stages. You've heard about these stages from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The basic stage is basic needs, then moves to love and belonging, then moves to self-esteem and self-actualization. I've simplified them into 3 big stages. I call it the first stage is survival. Fundamentally, human beings want those basic needs to be fulfilled, psychological, physiological needs to be fulfilled, which is food, shelter, warmth, security, and health. Once they've gotten that, which a large part of the world does have, I wouldn't say the whole world because a lot of countries still struggling for survival, safety, basic needs, right? Then comes growth. Once you have that, then you go towards seeking love and belonging and growth. And I want to belong to, I want part of a community out there. And then ultimately comes, and that growth also leads to self-esteem, which is what the biggest struggle in the world is. They've all got the basic safety measures taken care of. Now people are seeking self-esteem on social media. I put my picture, I want validation from the outside world. So expectation are that they will go and like my pictures. And that is creating a big deficit, an attention deficit in the world right now. So as Anupam would also share, we are dealing with an attention economy in the world, and there's a massive deficit of the attention economy in the world that's challenging right now. So growth becomes an important criteria here. And growth happens when we engage in meaningful conversation, meaningful exchange, not superficial interactions, but meaningful connections. Because ultimately, once you go through all that journey, you realize what really matters in the end is how you see yourself and how you can fulfill your own purpose in life, which is where self-actualization comes in. That's why you notice a lot of people who've achieved the fame, the fortune, still feel empty. Why? Because the self-actualization is missing. And yet there are others who have nothing in their bank account, yet they feel fulfilled in life. Because why? They've reached that stage of freedom, that nothing in the world impacts their internal well-being. They have reached a state of bliss and not using external substances, but internal exhilaration. That could be achieved by giving who you are to others. By, as Picasso said, find the purpose of life is to find your gift, and the mission of life is to give it away, isn't it? So self-actualization comes in when you become free from the struggles, from the expectation, from the frustration that those expectations bring from your own personalities. And that requires you to look within the answers you're seeking. I'm going to pause here. And this is why I say, right, if you would like to move to higher stages of evolution, you need to start shifting that system 2 to system 1, more conscious living every single day. And so shift, involve yourself with life every single day, fix, accelerate, and that's how you create a journey towards that higher levels of relationship management. Because when you're fully content within your own self, then you bring joy and energy to others. And who does not want to be around people who bring joy and energy, isn't it? So, and then you can fully be with others, not lost in your own tribulations in your own mind also out there. So freedom is the ultimate goal for human existence, right? In Hindu mythology, they call it moksha, right? Which is freedom from birth, rebirth. Again, you can believe whatever your perspectives make you believe, but all I say is pause and ask, when did you feel the most free? That is where you'll get answers to what you can do more of in your life to feel that freedom all over again. With that, I'd like to bring Celia back, and I'll leave you with the statement: what lies behind us and what lies before us are only tiny matters to what lies within us. So if you look at resolving human relationship challenges, all you have to do is unpack your memories as when were you two or your partnership with that person were at its best. And when you find those answers, do more of it, because at that point in time, your energies were synchronized, your needs were being fulfilled, your personalities were dancing with each other. And if you unpack what were the issues that were cropping up, you'll figure out where those personality traits are fighting with each other. And you fix those, you'll get back into that synchronization with each other, that harmony, that vibration syncing up with each other. On that note, thank you, Celia, for having me here for a day of calm. I hope if you process this journey, you can build more calmness in your life and more freedom in your life. So, Celia, over to you.
Well, it was absolutely, as always, above and beyond, Saurav, any expectations that I believe most of us had for this presentation, and so educational, so eye-opening, so spiritually opening. So I'd like to have, and people are putting in the comments kind of their aha moments, kind of their what surprised them. We have a few questions if you have a little more time. Wait. Maddie asks, so can there be trust if you have no expectations?
Well, that's a question for all of us to think about, right? Trust, I said, is expectation fulfilled, right? Trust is just a release of a chemical in the brain. And what is a trigger of that chemical is that need being fulfilled. And need comes from a source of expectation out there. So my sense would be, without expectations, how do you build trust? Without expectation, how do you build trust? Because it's a release of a chemical. Unless you can generate chemical for everyone in the world, then your expectations are low. But there's still expectations, right? This is low expectation. So yes, they are interconnected. I don't know if you can remove them from each other.
And Matthew asks, treat people the way they want to be treated. Powerful utility. Brilliant, sir. Love it. But how do we discriminate with a stranger?
Yes. Well, the whole world tells you who they are, only if you're willing to pay attention. I'll give you an example, right? I'll share a quick, the chart that I shared with you earlier, just briefly here to make a point here. Say somebody is very busy all the time. Yes, you can see them. They're like a busybody, talking, running around all the time. Their calendars are filled with information. What trait are you hearing in them? Achiever. Because achievers, and I say this for all those people who are who like to have a checklist of things to do, who have a to-do list, who are busy, you'll realize there's never a time in your life you guys were not busy. Even on a vacation, your vacations are so busy that you're running around traveling 4 different locations to cover the ground. So I say people are not busy because of work, they're busy because of who they are. So people tell you all these information only if you're willing to pay attention and listen deeply to those stories. Somebody's very impatient by nature. You can hear the activator in them. They need speed, they need accuracy. Somebody's very, I would say, let's look at command, very courageous. You can hear the strong voice, they're in charge. You can hear the command. Somebody loves, are great storytellers, love communicating. You can hear the communication in them also. So people are telling you who they are every single day. Are we just paying enough attention? You walk in their house, you see books lying around. You see, pictures of the families, relator. You can see learners. You can see awards, games, competition. People telling you every information they share with you. I'll give you a short story, very powerful. So there's this famous, a guru in India called Vivekananda. Yeah, he He was only 24 years old when he passed away, and he basically gave his life. It was like he let go from his body. 24 years old, imagine, right? Once he went to a German author's house. He was welcomed to his house, and he said he gave him a book. This guy held this book. I know you might think this is crazy, but that guy held a book, a German book in his hand. He said, "You've talked about these concepts in your book. Like, how did you figure it out?" Neither did Vivekananda spoke German. The book was written in German. But what he had was the ability to observe life. So he looked around the house of the German author. He saw all the pictures, all the visuals, all the books he's read. And he's a very well-learned man himself. So he's read some of those books that this person has read also. That gave him insights into the thought process somebody evolves with. That's a whole different level of consciousness. And he, based on that assessment, he could figure out what this person wrote in his book. How crazy is that? So my point is, the observation in the world, if you can enhance that to a whole different level, you can really create magic. Magic is everywhere around us, only if you're willing to get out of our heads and pay attention through our eyes. Use your Wi-Fi, not your Wi-Fi.
I love that. Use your Wi-Fi, not your Wi-Fi. And you know, I don't know if you've ever heard of the author and speaker, Andy Andrews. He considers himself, his title is he's a professional noticer. And one of his books, of his many, is The Noticer. And that's what he said. You know, people, he's a happy-go-lucky guy. He's very personable and friendly, and he speaks with the people, not at the people. And people ask him, why are you so good at resolving issues that he's resolved for major corporations and all these things? You would not think of him that way. And he said, because he notices. He takes time to notice, which is exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely. See, there's so much of beauty in the world. There's so much of beauty in human relationships. Just pay enough attention to the freckles on your partner's faces, to the smiles, when they smile, when they don't smile. They're telling you, they're shouting at you what they like, what they don't like. We're just not paying attention, right? If only we pause one day and says, let me put the phone aside. And today I'm just going to observe my partner, respond. You know, behavioral responses mirroring their body language, right? You ask questions about their day, go deeper to those perspectives. It could really, and I could do more of it also. I'm not saying I'm guilty of some of these challenges too, because our human brain is wired in such a way that and social media has wired us to go back lost into our phones through notifications. These are all program behaviors. So only if we decide to take action, to start shifting our perceptions to the reality of what exists, which is what we see every single day, observe more, we can really create more freedom in our relationships to survive and thrive.
Yes, your imperfections are your perfections. Yes. And you know, if anybody saw the movie Good Will Hunting, in the scene between, now of course every name escapes me. The name, the twin, I can't think of who they are. Maddie, put the characters in there. Put the the thing. Robin Williams and other guy. So the point is, they have a discussion about his wife and love, and they talk about, silly enough, that I think she like farts under the covers when she sleeps. She doesn't even know it, but he says that's the good stuff. That's the gold in a relationship. The stuff you know about your partner that nobody else knows. Those intimate little connections is the gold of relationships.
And I'd say, accept people for who they are, not what you want them to be. Accept people for who they are, not what you want them to be. And if there is misaligned expecting both sides, have a conversation and align. That's the key. Expect people for who they are, not accept them for who they are, not what you want them to be. And if there's misalignment, have a conversation around aligning those expectations. Under promise, over deliver is the secret of magical relationships, is what I say.
So how valuable was this, guys? I know, from a scale from 1 to 10, you're probably like 9 million. That's where I would be. But put in the chat, share the love so Saurav can see, because I know you're all just loving this session. And Saurav, so grateful for you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. It has been a wonderful, wonderful, valuable presentation to really push forward the mission of compassionate connection and making sure that we are not only role modeling, but we're also acting on what needs to be done to bring people together, not tear them apart. So you got I can't even count all the numbers. 100 million, 100,000%. Everybody's loving it. So thank you,
Right.
Saurabh. Saurabh, see, I fell into my old habits.
I'm
Sorry.
fine with that, Celia. I've gotten used to it, and you're such an amazing human being. So, every time you
So you
say that,
forgive
it
me.
brings a smile to my face and to my mind as well. So it's all positive chemicals right there.
I appreciate it. At least I'm close to your name. Like I'm not calling you the name of my pet like I do to my children. So Maddie says, do you have a podcast?
Well, I do not have a podcast yet, but if you want me to start, I can start. That's perfectly fine. I'm happy to explore that. But you can definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I do these thoughts, reflections called Atri Talks, where I just put my thoughts on. And I do this through practice. So every morning at 5:30, I get up in the morning, I meditate. And my meditation is not chanting some thought or words. My meditation is reflection, deep conscious, subconscious reflection. So the idea here is for me to really go deep into becoming better as a person to generate insights. And I put those thoughts out there for myself. If that inspires you, feel free to follow it along also on LinkedIn. For me, I'm not seeking any social validation. All I'm seeking is freedom through my own thought process to evolve. So even if you don't like me, like that post, perfectly acceptable by me. Just absorb it, see if it changes life. That in itself was good enough for me.
And everything carries a hashtag Atri Talks.
Correct.
So if you search the hashtag Atri Talks on LinkedIn, I'm assuming it will lead them to all your posts. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I know you have more to do today. If you want to hang around, I'll be talking how to stop yelling at your children. But also referring them back to this conversation because one element of it is fully explained right here. So this has been a great build up for our final day. And I thank you so much, Saurabh, for being here.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me, Celia. You're truly transforming people's lives every single day through the work you do. And if parents can have a better relationship with their children, that changes their children's life forever because that's the programming happening right there. So I'm grateful that you exist and you do all this amazing work and also impacting the schools in Uganda as well. That's very meaningful. So God bless you. And I'm always cheering for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so glad we've joined lives here. So have a wonderful day.
Thank you as well. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and, just go and seek something nice about the person you're with in your household. That'll change the world right there. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys. So we continue. We say goodbye to Saurabh. And I know that was an amazing thing. Seek something wonderful in your partners. That's just see the right, see the good. Stop seeing, we're so quick to see what's not right. Start seeing what is right. There's always much more good that a person does than much more not so good. I don't even like to use the word bad. I like not so good. Good and not so good. Right and not so right. We all make choices. Let's encourage and let's tune in to our children, tune in to our coworkers, tune into our family. Wouldn't it be nice if this also brought together families that have been broken for so long, siblings that didn't talk for years and years and years, when we start switching the way we see the situation and we start encouraging the person for who they are. All right. So we're going to take a little break. The next speaker is me. So I am the next speaker, and we're going to take a little break to reflect on our sponsors. Do we have the sponsor frame so we could just give a shout out to our sponsors? Our wonderful sponsors, Curtis and Ginsburg Architects, the leading architectural firm in eco-friendly construction. They are out of New York, and they are doing the plans for the school in Uganda, the architectural plans that we all really need your help with. We'll show a video before I begin. Me, Mandawi Enterprises, empowering business owners to be the best they can be, the best person they can be. He, again, is a very, very excellent coach on how you can improve yourself to improve your life and your future. Pumped Up Parenting, that's me. And ISORC, that is Anupam, and his incredible work is seen in this summit, in all the IT, all the background that's been going on, along with our amazing czar, my assistant, but so much more than that. Billie Jean is marketing. If you don't know Billie Jean, you don't know marketing. So hop on, check him out. He's incredible. Kasturi Ram College of Higher Education, where we launched the Day of Calm early in the morning on April 5th, and all their support and all their amazing students. Justin Captain Pro, who is a starting brand specialist. If you think you have a vision, if you think you could offer the world something, you're right. If you don't know where to begin, reach out to Justin. He's the creator of the International Day of Calm logo, that beautiful logo with the hands holding the globe. He created that. He's an amazing person. Reach out to Justin. And the International Society of Nature and Forest Medicine speaks for itself. We had a whole discussion on plant medicine and how it can really help with your physical calm and well-being. It's grown every day. What are we doing with it? So another society, you can find out more by going to their information. I so appreciate all our sponsors, because this wouldn't be possible without their help and assistance. So I appreciate it. If you're interested in sponsoring our day so we can do more and more events throughout the year, which we're planning on, as well as our big event on April 5th, please go to dayofcalm.org, hit the How Can I Help or sponsor button, and you can sponsor. Another initiative is our Rescue a School campaign. You've seen it. You see the school in Uganda. You see these kids that are just so happy to be in their world, even though they're faced with so many things that work against them. They make it all work for them. So please show the video, and then I'll start how to stop yelling at your kids once and for all.
Viewers all over the world, good morning. We are here at Brilliant Nasaran Primary School. Thank you so much for watching this show clip.
Hi, everyone. We're back. And thank you so much for supporting the Brilliant Nursery and Primary School in Uganda. They really need our help. And even if you have $1 to share, it adds up to so much more. So I appreciate your help with that. I want to talk about something that I'll be sharing for all of you. So once you listen to my program and you've listened to all these programs, if you want to keep moving forward with your calm communication, with your relationship, with what is going on between you and your children, so that you're not creating disconnect. You know, when kids get to be teenagers, and you see someone, they have nothing to do with the family, the first thing they'll say is, well, because nobody cares about me. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Nobody values me. I feel like I might as well be invisible. Have your children start feeling visible, see them, hear them, listen to them. And this will help you learn how to do it. You'll be able to tackle screen and gaming time, what you need to know all about video games, screen time on your time, not their time. You'll get the family bundle, how to be a good listener, behavior, words, getting the conversation started and keeping it going. You've heard through all of this that communication is key. You get all of these courses bundled up so that you can keep the calm, the cooperation, the productive responses. You can stop flying by the seat of your pants. You can start being a proactive parent instead of a reactive parent. If this has taught you nothing, it should teach you that you need to be proactive. You need to start with you. You need to look in the mirror and see what you're seeing and what you need to do, because everything you do, good or not so good, you give your children permission to do. Everything. They are seeing you. They are seeing your actions. They're seeing your behaviors. If you're throwing a fit and yelling and screaming every time they're disappointed, guess what they're going to do? Yell and scream every time they're disappointed. They're learning from you. So if you're ready to become the best role model you can be for your children, for your spouse, your partner, get a hold of our bundle. It's normally a $300 bundle. It is special for the summit, only $37. So go to the bit.ly link, Day of Calm Special. It's shown right there in the green square, and pick up your bundle so you can start learning to be the best parent you can be. And you can take all this information from the summit and carry it into every day of your future. Okay. So now let's get started with my conversation of how to stop yelling at your kids once and for all. And we're back. So we are going to have a little more interaction, kind of like what Saurav did. So get ready for your comments and put them in the chat stream. But let me tell you what you're going to learn in this session today. You're going to learn why people yell. And I'm going to pause here because the first thing I want you to put in the chat stream is, why do you yell at your children? Why do you yell? Why do you yell at your partner? Why are you a yeller? So I want you to answer that question and put it in the chat stream. Whatever reason you feel causes you to yell, put that in there. We're going to learn why we yell, not just from you, but from all of the thousands of parents I've worked with. We're also going to learn how yelling and aggression has affected you and how it is affecting your children. What is it doing? What has it done to you mentally and physically? And what is it doing to your children? We're also going to talk about what needs to be in place in your home. What is going to create that new system that you put into action that creates an environment of calm, that creates that cooperation instead of all the negotiation or the refusal to do things. What do you need to put in place? And we're going to discuss a variety of things and how you can incorporate and take action today to make a change. And while I'm talking, look at all these reasons that people yell. And we are going to answer the one big reason, the most popular reason that people yell specifically to their children that I get today when I ask that question. So that's what we're going to start with, and that's what we're going to continue through this lesson. So let's see why you guys yell. I'm going to read off what it says. Dr. Seema says due to frustration. Czar says overwhelmed, exhaustion. Lisa says habit. Czar says unregulated emotions. Anapan says due to expectations. All of these are good, valid reasons that cause people to yell. The first thing I want to tell you about yelling, though, is that no one can make you yell. No one can make you yell. Only you can make you yell. And I'm going to go on a side note. And Czar and Anapan, if you can find on YouTube, and I should have brought this up already and I didn't, the link that shows the conversation between Will Smith and Chris Rock. And there is one that is censored so that we're not like cussing all over the place. If you can find that link and we can show it, let me know when you can show it. Please define yelling. Yelling is loud, screaming voices that make a person fear you and feel that you're attacking them. Being firm with a child is not yelling. You can be firm. You can have firmness in your voice. Because communication, my friends, is 80%, and it breaks down finer than this, but I'm going to give you a general breakdown. 80% nonverbal cues, 20% the words you say. So whatever you're doing, rolling your eyes, screaming, yelling, you're downstairs, you're yelling to your kids up on the second level so they can hear you instead of getting up and walking up and talking to them. That's what the person is hearing and absorbing, not necessarily the words you say. That's what's happening. So yelling, and thank you for that question, is screaming, is really being that loud, aggressive behavior that people cannot just hear, they feel. And I think the clip is ready. I want you to watch this, and we're going to talk about it.
Tonight, Javier Bardem and his wife are both nominated. Now, if she loses, he can't win. He is praying that Will Smith wins. Like, please, Lord. Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yes.
Okay.
It was a
We can
G.I.
cut this
Jane.
and go back
I'm
to
going
me.
to, okay?
Can we go back to me? We can
So,
stop this. Good. So the point of this is, here was the perfect example. Literally, I couldn't have written the script, got paid those two to do it. The perfect example of being in control of yourself and reacting. Here, Chris Rock got smacked and hard, and yet did not punch back. He could have. People wouldn't have been surprised, because you hear it all the time that, if a bully punches you, punch him back. Instead, he kept his composure, he made light of it, and he went on with the show. That's being in control of your emotions. Nobody can make you do something. They can trigger you. They can affect your emotional mood, but they can't make you do something. So when parents say to me, well, my kids make me yell at them. No, they don't make you. You make you. It's like when kids say to me, my grandkids will say, Gammon, I'm bored. I'll come back. They don't even say it anymore because they know what I'm going to say, because I'll say, who's making you bored? And they'll say, we are. Exactly. No one can make you do anything. You need to be in control. So that's one of the huge things that you need to recognize is your own triggers. What's going on that's causing you to yell? And when I ask thousands of parents what causes them to yell, and I have asked thousands of parents what causes them to yell, I get two answers. One is, I don't know any other way. Lisa said habit. And that might have come from the fact that she was raised by someone who also yelled. There goes those generational cycles of dysfunction and abuse that enter into our lives every generation, and that either continue or someone does something to stop it. You're here, I'm hoping, because you expect to learn how to stop it and find ways that you can calm your own soul. The second reason is, well, I ask really nicely. I start out being really polite, really kind, and I ask over and over and over again, and then I yell, and then they listen. Stay till the end, because I'm going to tell you how to solve that, because that is probably the most common answer I get from parents when they finally break down the overwhelm and the frustration. It leads to that. So let's talk about what yelling does. Now, I was raised by a wonderful man who was a yeller, and he was able to control from his childhood. He was able to control the physical violence that he absorbed when he was a child and not bring that into our family. But he still retained a very short fuse, a short temper, and yelled. And one of the reasons that yelling is so important to control is because it does so much damage to the developing brain. The human brain doesn't fully develop until we're 25 years old. So if you're not 25 and you're listening, you don't have a fully developed brain. Imagine the brain of a child, of a toddler. It's all full of emotions. Saurav talked about the number one brain and the number two brain, the subconscious and the conscious. The subconscious brain controls reactions to emotions until a child learns how to regulate emotions. And those reactions to disappointment and being mad and being told no and being angry are usually things like tantrums. They throw something, they hit someone, they bite someone, they kick someone, all kinds of things that are automatic reactions to those emotions because they have no self-regulation. They have no logic. Logic and reasoning is not built into the brain, it's taught. So if you are expecting your child, well, you need to look at this logically. They can't look at it logically. If you're expecting them to react to you and respond to you like an adult, it's not just difficult, it's impossible. They can't do it. They are not adults. Understand their age and their abilities and understand how the brain learns. So we need to be aware of this little thing that's a child, all through the ages that they grow and what they show. So one of the things you need to start putting into place is awareness of your child. Matthew says, so yell in this contest, vocally or physically aggression. Will Smith watered seeds of hate, thinking he was righteous, while Rock chose to be present, chose to water seeds of love and compassion. Yes, love that explanation. Love that explanation. Absolutely. So we need to be aware of our children. We need to learn. Oh, back up, because I didn't tell you all the effects on a brain. Sorry, got distracted. Okay, so I'm going to describe certain behaviors, and you tell me what you agree with. Do you second guess yourself? Do you not speak up? Are you the peacemaker? Are you an aggressor? Do you think that everything you do is wrong? And the opposite of that is, do you think nothing that you do is right? If any of these things are striking home to you, either now or in your childhood, growing up, they came from being parented in a yelling, aggressive way. The Iroquois say killing the spirit of a child is the same as killing their body. In their society, both are criminal acts punishable by permanent exile. Yes, you're killing your child's spirit. Absolutely. Do you, when you're in a group and everybody goes, so what do you guys want for dinner? And you're like, anything's fine with me, except you really want some sushi. You don't speak up because you're fearing their judgment, their criticism. Well, what if, I suggest something and they're going to laugh at me? We're not eating that. I'd really like some peanut butter and jelly. Who wants peanut butter and jelly? And I know some of you people from America, I've learned that think peanut butter and jelly is gross. It's actually delicious. But you're afraid that you're going to get judged and criticized. You beat yourself up all the time. You say things like, oh, why am I so stupid? How come I'm such an idiot? You don't think you're worthy of success. You don't think you're worthy of love. You don't think that you are worthy of existing sometimes. You can't handle disappointment. All of these feelings, all of these things that are hidden within the subconscious of your mind was put there from your childhood, from somebody who yelled. And if you are yelling at your children, you are planting those same thoughts, those same little voices in your child. They're not good enough. Nothing they do is right. They're the bad kid. They are not worthy. They are not confident. They're not confident enough to speak up, because when they speak up, they get yelled at. So that destroys their confidence and their ability to speak up. They always do everything wrong and nothing right. They're named, they're labeled, they're called lazy, they're called liars. They have no positive expectations to live up to. So guess what? They don't live up to any expectations. They feel mediocre. They don't feel special. And the one to realize that happens is that kids don't really grow up hating their parents, even the worst parents in the world. They grow up hating themselves. I'll say it again. They grow up hating themselves. That's why there's so much alcoholism, so much substance abuse, suicide, all of that, because we are raising adults that hate themselves. My tagline in Pumped Up Parenting is because we're raising adults, not children. They're already children. Our job is to raise adults that are contributing members to the society, that are self-reliant, confident, feel worthy of all the blessings of life. That's our job. And we have to grasp it and take hold of it and nourish these children, not beat them and hit them and yell at them. That just is crushing them. And it's producing either, number one, an aggressive human who is doing the same to others, or number two, the peacemaker. The peacemaker is someone who works hard to keep the peace. Someone who avoids confrontation at all costs. Someone who just stays quiet, keeps to themselves, and never speaks up. That's what gets created. And if you recognize any of this in yourself, put it in the chat stream. If there's something that really strikes home, or you recognize it in your children, let me know. Because I know none of you want to raise children who are afraid of you. Let me remind you that screaming and yelling does not create respect. It creates fear. Your children become afraid of you. They don't respect you. Who was the last person you respected that screamed and yelled at you all the time? Did you ever work a job where you were always screamed and yelled at, or always judged and criticized? Did you want to stay in the job? Well, guess what? You had the option of quitting. Kids can't quit. Kids can't quit. Although in the case of C.L. King, if you read his story and if you listen to his conversation, if you read his book, Who Ate My Brownie, which is that question in here is very important. If you read it, you will see that he did decide to quit on his family because it was so destructive at 11 years old and became homeless. He made that conscious decision. Do you want that for your kids? Do you want your child walking away and saying, I'm done with this? Let me tell you a couple things that make the teenage brain special. Since we've all here been teenagers, 3 things the human body, the brain adds to the teenage brain. It adds risk. That's why teenagers do dumb stuff. We've all done it. We've all taken risks that were like, oh, that might have been not our wisest move. It adds that to our brains when we're teenagers. It adds friends, the need for friends. So if you're a parent of a teenager, don't, get insulted because they don't want to hang out with you. Don't get insulted. Instead, recognize that it's a part of their brain. They just need their friends, but keep your connection alive. I had a mom who said she was done with this. So sad. Exactly. Exactly, Lisa. Don't avoid the connection. Don't do that thing. And how many times we've all heard it. Do you hear parents go, well, they're teenagers. They're just being a teenager. We hear it all the time. Yes, Nick, lead by example and trust. Still be the person that wants to connect with your child. that wants to talk with your child. Don't be like, well, if he wanted to talk to me, he would. And there's the most important thing that is added to the teenage brain. And ISIS knew it. And that's how they got so many people to join the ISIS movement. And that is the need to belong. Children of teenagers need to belong. And if they don't feel like they belong in your home, if they feel invisible, if they feel like nobody cares what they have to say, nobody values their opinion, guess what they're going to find? A place to belong. And I bet it isn't going to be so great. You have to create that family unit, that harmony. You have to create it or you will lose your child. I work with clients with toddlers all the way up to I have a client who's in her 70s and her daughter's in her 50s, and she's trying to heal a relationship. It's never too late. It's only too late if you're dead. So if you're not dead, and maybe, I don't know, maybe that's not too late. I've never been dead. If you're not dead, it's not too late. We should keep those connections open with our kids so we are part of their trusted group. Yes, not peer oriented. Don't listen to you. Yes, Lisa. Yes, yes, yes. It's never too late. And Maddie said, exactly. This is why storytelling is more effective in teaching behavior than yelling and hitting kids. Remember a story with a lesson. Absolutely. And that relates to so many things. If your child's being bullied or you're thinking they might be, tell a story, create a story around it. Do you know anyone that this might be happening to? Stories are valuable, and not just any stories, but also your own stories. Children want to know you're vulnerable. They want to know you're human. They want to know that, you know what, you've been through stuff too, and this is how you handled it. And if you got through it, maybe they can too. Tell stories. So let's go over a few things of the things that you need to put into place to really make this happen. You need a system. You know, we have a system for everything. And for some reason, people think that learning how to be a better parent is unnecessary. And history shows us, and present day shows us, that if it was so unnecessary, there wouldn't be tyrants. There wouldn't be the violence of school shootings. There wouldn't be war. There wouldn't be all these things if we were all such perfect parents. As a parent, you are working with all the knowledge you have, every bit of it. And sometimes in today's world, you have so much knowledge, you don't know where to begin and where to end. So you're absorbing all this. I hear parents that say, I've tried everything, nothing works. We're going to talk about that too. There's all this information fed into you, and you're working with that, and it's still not working, and you're still yelling. I wrote an article in the Elephant Journal, I think it was in 21, that was how to stop yelling at your kids once and for all. In 2 months, there were 350,000 reads on that article in 2 months. 350,000. That's how many people still yell at their kids and don't know how to stop. Because we all feel like garbage when we yell. Put in the comments, guys, how do you feel when you're yelling at your child? Or maybe you're yelling at a partner, because you know your relationship with your partner is you're modeling normal for your kids. If you're always screaming, yelling, calling names, cussing, labeling, your kids are like, well, this is my normal. This is what I'm going to do in a relationship. How do you feel when that happens? Do you feel like a good parent? Do you feel like a good partner? Nick says, I hate myself and even life when I hit and yell. I had a comment from a parent who said, you have to admit sometimes it's appropriate to hit a child. And I said back, when is it appropriate for someone to hit you? When is it appropriate for a husband to hit a wife? When is it appropriate for a wife to hit a spouse? When is it appropriate for a boss to hit an employee? When is it appropriate? It's not. Just because that's a child, and even more so because that's an innocent person that cannot fight back. It's not appropriate. Learn what you don't know. There are systems in place for everything. We have a system for going potty. You don't pee through your pants, you take them off. It's a system. There are systems that need to be in place in your home as well. So let me go through a list here. And whatever you hear that you're not doing or you feel incompetent in doing, put it in the comments. Matt says, no one thinks they are yelling. In context, we embrace the habit and righteousness, then later regret it when I see the emotional splash damage. Yes. And to that point, it is accepted by cultures to be yelling. The reason people think there's no problem with yelling is because everybody yells. And if they talk to another parent, they're like, yeah, I yell too. There are cultures. You heard from Wendy from Nigeria when we opened up our Day of Calm Summit. We talked about calm begins at home. In Nigeria, they do what's called flogging. That's beating a child, and it is perfectly acceptable. So if they see someone beating a child, they're fine with that. They don't intervene. And in fact, Wendy made the point that if you see a child that's maybe throwing a tantrum or being, uncooperative in a certain way, people wonder why you're not beating them. Many don't even know they're yelling. I'm happy I'm at least aware. Yes, many don't. And many, like people have said to me, don't know any other way. So let's get to a list of what I consider needs to be a part of your family system. And spanking is a form of effective discipline in the Philippines, Czar said, which is another thing. Parents correct a child who's hitting by hitting them. That's illogical. Go back to everything you do, you give your child permission to do. So if you hit them, you give them permission to hit. Maddie says Maya Angelou talked about the moment she stopped hitting her son when he said to her, I'm so much smaller than you. Why do you think you should hit? You tell me not to hit. Exactly. Addressing what I just said. Okay, so these are the things you need to put in place in your parenting journey, in your parenting system, in your home. You need to be aware of your child. You need to know what they're doing. As Saurav so wonderfully explained, you need to tune into their strengths. Anapan said, in India, also spanking is a common practice. Even teachers hit children for not completing homework. And I'm sure that works wonderfully. Sarcasm. That was sarcasm. You need to recognize strengths. I talk about my son, Kyle, who is now 34 years old. And so often people are judgmental about gaming. Parents are judgmental about gaming, partly because they don't know how to get them off their games. My son, Kyle, is a professional career gamer. So is his wife. They work for a gaming company in Amsterdam. They met at a gaming company here in Maryland. They are professional gamers. He loved gaming from the time practically came out of the womb. But did I make fun of that? Did I discourage it? No. I would sit down and go, so Kyle, tell me what you like about this game. Can you teach me how to play? I would take an interest in his interest. We connected through gaming, even though I didn't game. And I'm still, to this day, not a great gamer. But I also didn't let it monopolize his time. There was a balance. He had to do homework. He had to go outside. He had to eat. He had to sleep. He had to do chores. He could not just game. There was a limited time for that. And if you get the package that I'm offering for only $37, you'll get a whole explanation of how to get screen time back on your time and not their time. So tune in to the gifts your child has. Don't decide, well, this child is going to love football because I love football. Maybe they won't love football. Maybe they really don't like football at all. Or maybe they don't like the competitive sports. Tune into them. There's a wonderful book out, and it's by Dr. Dana Susskind called 30 Million Words. 30 million words. I think it's 30 million or 30,000. I think it's 30 million words. Anyway, it's a wonderful book and all about how important talk and discussion is to connecting and building the brain of your child. She is a cochlear surgeon. She helps kids hear. It's a wonderful book. And if you haven't read it, it's a sure read for every parent. So tune into your child. Next, you need to have schedules and routines in place. You need to have schedules and routines in place. And I know some of you are like, well, we've tried it, doesn't work. It doesn't work because you didn't give it time to work. Things don't work overnight. You have to stay consistent. In everything you do in parenting, you need to stay consistent. We talked about integrity. Don't say something that you have no intention of doing. Be a parent of integrity. If you say it, do it. If you want them to live it, you live it. Discuss your core values. Share them as a family. And be the person you want your children to be, so they have a positive role model to live up to. They need boundaries and limits. Boundaries and limits are not mean. In fact, it's the opposite. If you don't have boundaries and limits, that's mean. You know why it's mean? Because children that live without boundaries and limits live without safety and security. Safety and security is one of our 4 parts of our mission in creating the next generation. Been a lot out of integrity. Need to work on that, Nick. We love you. Boundaries and limits need to be in place. And along with boundaries and limits, you need consequences and consistency. So if you don't know how to form a consequence instead of just punishing, you need to learn how to form a consequence. Consequences teach. They teach children and humans to make better choices. Punishments punish and do nothing else, and that behavior will repeat itself and repeat itself. The perfect consequence in the world is the speeding ticket. Why is the speeding ticket a perfect consequence? Because we know that if we speed, we have a chance of getting a ticket. But we choose to speed. Not saying I do. Maybe. And you take a risk that some policeman is going to pull you over and give you a ticket. You've made a conscious choice. Then you get a speeding ticket. He doesn't take your keys away. He doesn't take your car and get it towed. He, in fact, lets you start right up and go on your way, hoping you have learned a lesson and you won't speed again. So it's reasonable. The speeding ticket is relatable. It relates to the crime. It's reasonable. He doesn't tow your car away. That's not reasonable. And it's repeatable. Every time that situation occurs, that same consequence occurs. We learn from it. the perfect consequence. Okay. Other things that need to be in place. Communication. Your words matter. We discussed what communication is, the 80-20 rule. What you say, how you say it matters. Are you speaking positively to your kids? Are you using your manners? I have parents come to me all the time and say, my kids don't use their manners. My first question is, do you use yours? And many people go, well, sometimes. I even had someone go, well, you know what? We've been married for a long time, so we never use our manners. And I'm like, you know what? You don't grow out of being kind and respectful to other people. Use your manners. And then you'll get kids that use their manners. If you sometimes use your manners, your children will also sometimes use theirs. You are teaching them language. They're born with communication. They're not born with language. If they're cussing, they learned it somewhere. If they're screaming and yelling, they learned it somewhere. It's all learned behaviors. You need to have calm communication. Your culture of your family. We have community culture. We have societal cultures. We have spiritual cultures. Your home also has a culture. Is it a culture of aggression? Is it a culture of fun, of love, compassion? What are your expectations for your children? Do you believe in them? Do you trust them? Do you give them hope, possibility? Or are they living up to negative expectations? Here's a little trick for you, a little golden nugget. You want your child to take out the trash when they get home. You drive them to school. Now, when they get home, you want to make sure that whenever they get home, they remember that that's their responsibility. So you can say one of two things. You can say, don't forget to take the trash out when you get home. You know you need to take the trash out. What does that indirectly say to your child? It says, I don't believe in you. I'm sure you're going to screw up and not do it. And so I have to remind you to do everything because you're not smart enough or consistent enough to do it on your own. What if you said this to your child? Oh, honey, have a great day at school. By the way, thank you for taking the trash out when you get home. Thank you for taking the trash out when you get home. Do you know what that just did? It reminded them. But instead of reminding them with you not believing in them or trusting them, now you showed them, I believe in you. I know you're going to take the trash out. I won't be there, so I'm thanking you ahead of time. And now you're setting up a positive expectation for when they get home because they've already been thanked for it. So they're going to remember it more. It's a positive thing instead of a negative thing. What are the expectations you're setting up for your child? Encouragement. So many people spoke about it. Dr. Kate spoke about it. What is right? Start noticing what is right in your home. Decide today. You know what? Today, if you take nothing else out of all of this, start seeing the good. Start noticing the right people around you do. If you're struggling with something difficult, start thinking about what was it that I did do right? And you know what you're going to find out? You're going to find out that, whoa, I did like a lot right and maybe this much not so right. When you look at your kids, here's another scenario for you. You come home from work, you've like had a lousy day. You're tired, kids are playing. You're like, oh, this is a good time for me to sit down and just relax and have some tea. You sit down, you relax, you have some tea. The kids are playing. They're doing great. You're drinking your tea. You're calming down. And then they start fighting. What do? You put down your teacup. You run in there and you go, what are you kids arguing about? Why are you always fighting? Why can't you get along? when for 20 minutes while you sat and had tea, they were playing nicely and you said nothing. They're fighting because probably they're sick of each other. So they're getting on each other's nerves. And where was the attention? The attention was the fight, not the, guys, thank you so much for playing so nicely. You should have gone in there and said, guys, you know what? I got to have a cup of tea. I feel so much better. Thank you for playing so nice. Why don't the three of us go play a game together for 10 minutes and not even mention the spat? Peace cannot be achieved through violence. It can only be attained through understanding. Yes, Martin Luther King, amazing human. Start noticing the good they're doing and tell them you notice. Don't just go, wow, they did pretty good. Yes, Nick, where focus goes, energy flows, and then it grows. Absolutely. Don't just skip by all the good. When I work with my clients and we start our session, the number one first thing we do is talk about our wins. Get that dopamine flowing. When children get acknowledged, they get happy. When you're appreciated, you're happy. When you look at your partner and say, hey, honey, thanks for doing the dishes, that shows them they're visible. They're not invisible. When your kids come downstairs and they carry their plate to the sink or their books, or they do something that you love them doing, mention it. Thank you, honey, so much for picking up that sock on the step. I really appreciate it. Start being a noticer and letting them know you notice. When you show a child that what they do, you acknowledge all that good, they're going to stop feeling like a bad kid because they're not being yelled at for every single thing. And they're going to start cooperating more and be happier and be encouraged to be a part of this family. Offer choices. Give children choice for negotiables. Allow them a little power over their own lives, when mostly children's lives, they're told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. Everything's like told. Stop telling so much and give them some choice. Empower them through choice. Take time with them. Spend time. Doesn't have to be hours. 10 minutes is great. Put this thing down. If you are talking to your child and this thing is in your hand and they're talking and you're scrolling, mine's upside down, you are sending a direct message that, you know what, I hear you, but it's clearly not as important as this phone. They're playing. Sit down on the floor and play with them. Start showing them you care and you love them and you want to have fun with them. Laughter, did the whole thing. Laughter is the best medicine and the best stress reducer. You laugh more in a home. You have more fun in your home. Your home will be a happier place to be for all of you. You won't regret coming home. Your kids won't. Your kids like, oh, now I got to go home. Now I got to go deal with that. Is that how you want your family to be? It's up to you to turn this around. Okay. So real quick, and I don't even know what time is this. I've probably gone on too long. But real quick, let's talk about how you resolve I ask real nicely, and then I ask again, and then I ask again, and then I ask again, and then I scream and yell. Happens to the best of us. The problem here actually is not the yelling. The problem here is the asking. Stop asking your kids over and over and over again to do the same thing. You ask them once, you encourage something to be done through choice. That's a great way. Encouragement is always better and more motivating than discouragement. But if you ask them to do something and they don't follow through the first time, then that's when a consequence happens. The reason they wait is because you're not serious until you yell. You just keep asking. If they're on their video games and you're like, guys, it's time to stop playing video games, come to dinner. And you leave and you come back 5 minutes later and you ask them again. You come back 5 minutes later, you ask them again. You come back 5 minutes later, you ask them again. You come back 5 minutes later. Now you yell. Those kids just got 20 more minutes to play video games and they know it and you train them. Eye opener, right? So the first time you ask, you need to put in a consequence. And for video games, it's very easy because consoles are small. There are buttons on them that stop them. Take control. You're in charge. You're ultimately in charge. Your 3-year-old should not be running your house. And so often they do. So often children run a house. In my book, Raising Happy Toddlers, selfless plug, which you can win my books if you post a video on Instagram with the hashtag IamCalm2 and tag Day of Calm. You win my books. In my books, there's a chapter on who's in charge here. And the next line is under the chapter heading is you in capital letters. And I almost stopped that chapter right there and moved on to the next one. But what I wrote after that was, well, I guess you bought this book, so you want to know more. So I'll tell you more because I figure, oh, crash, all the books fall down. So I'll tell you more. So I do expand upon that, but you are ultimately in charge. It's up to you to put this system in place to encourage cooperation. If you don't have a reason to yell, yelling doesn't happen. If you have taken time to control your feelings, your emotions, understand your triggers and what makes you tick, and you create this cooperative, happy home where kids are encouraged to cooperate. I don't like the word obey. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's for animals. It's not for kids. Kids cooperate. And they do a lot of cooperation if you put these tools in place. If you don't have these tools, you're back to yelling. And your kids are back to being afraid, back to being frustrated, back to being mad, back to reaching out to belong somewhere because they don't feel like they belong at your house. They feel like the bad kid and they're living up to that expectation in every aspect of their life. In school, at home, their friends, whatever. They're living up to that I'm the bad kid expectation. Do you want your kid to feel like the bad kid? We have all of this rage and violence going on. We have the 13th school shooting in the United States. How did that child grow up to have so much rage in them that they felt like this was the answer? To kill small children and maybe indirectly diving deep into the brain, maybe they killed small children because they hated themselves as a child. They hated their own inner child. We have to fix this. We have to start taking control of the situation. We have to say, this stops with me. If you believe this stops with me, put it in the chat. This stops with me. These generational cycles have to end. We are all role models for children. They are seeing it all. They're seeing it on TV. They're seeing it everywhere. They see it all over the place. Somebody's got to decide that our children are our most valuable resource and we need to change their future. We need to help them so that as they become adults, they don't have to recover from their childhoods. Can you imagine a generation that doesn't have to recover from their childhood? Can you imagine? Wouldn't that be wonderful? I mean, people like me might be out of business, but that would be hooray. If that actually happened, and then we can have hope that it happens, that hope, that persistence, that belief in the future can exist. It says, Ms. Kibler, should we declare consequences, not punishments? Make the outcome of non-mindful behavior a logical consequence. Abuse the gaming. You choose to lose the game, not personal. Not yeah, exactly. Exactly. It is a clear consequence, but here's the important ingredient: family meetings where we sit down and we discuss things. So that when there's a consequence in place, like a speeding ticket, it is an educational choice, an educated choice that they make. They know that if they don't stop gaming, when you ask them, that there is the consequence of that game being gone for 24 hours, not for the rest of their life. Don't throw it in the garbage. Don't take the tablet and throw that away. Why would you throw away a perfectly good tablet? 24 hours, so you can give it back to them and give them another opportunity to learn and to examine and to make better choices. You need to learn to make better choices. So do they. You need to be proactive and think before you act. So do they. And if you want to expand on that, get the bundle, learn more. $37. How much do you spend on a cup of coffee at Starbucks? Is that going to change the future of your family? $37. I know we all work hard for our money, but isn't your family worth it? And I'm going to give you, and thank you for the music, guys. I'm going to give you one last thing to remember to stop yelling. You guys know who Peppa Pig is? Peppa Pig? I want you to remember Peppa, not spelled like Peppa. There's not two P's. P-E-P-A, Peppa. Whenever you're about to yell, when you feel the tension build, your chest tightening, your brain swelling and feeling painful, your nerves getting on edge and you feel that prickly feeling, Peppa. Pause, examine, plan, act. Pause. Just remembering Peppa will put in the pause in your brain. Examine what is going on. Look at it. Look at what's going on. Plan. What's my best approach to this situation? What is a productive way of approaching this? And then do that. Act. Peppa. Do you feel yourself at the boiling point? Peppa. Write it in the comments. P-E-P-A. Peppa. When that anxiety starts building, when that overwhelm starts being created, when that disappointment in your child happens, Peppa. Remember, if you're screaming and yelling because they're disappointed, you're disappointed in them, they're going to do the same when they're disappointed. If you're shocked that every time you say no, your kid throws a fit, it's probably because when they don't listen to you, you do. You have to teach them emotional regulation. They need to learn. Thank you, Pilar. Okay, guys, so reach out for my bundle. If you're interested in my books, you can win them through our contest of posting a video about how you enjoyed this summit, this 3-day summit, how it helped you. And the last thing I want you to put in the comments is, was there one aha moment, one thing that you thought, I'm not doing this, in this discussion that really hit home for you? Put it in the comments so other people can see. And if you have a little tip of like how you stop yelling, put that in the comment so you can help others because you've had experience that someone else might not have, and you had something that worked for you. Feel free to put that in the comments. We're a community. We're all supporting each other. Yay, Dr. Seema. Absolutely. No more yelling. Control yourself. Will you never yell? I mean, in reality, we all have bad days. But then you know what happens is you can go to your family and say, you know what, guys, I'm sorry. I have had a very hard day. It's been rough. And I did not intend to respond like that. Please, let's have a do-over. You can have do-overs in life. Let's do it over. Breathing. Here's a great way to show your child, your little one, how to breathe. Hold up a finger. Yes, Czar, I was just going to show him that. Hold up your finger, and you guys do it with me. Smell the flower and blow out the candles. And you can add an S to that. Smell the flower, blow out the candles. Smell the flower, blow out the candles. They do that 4 times, you've relaxed yourself. Give them tools. Yes, your favorite was Peppa. Oink, oink. I know. See? Exactly. A little snorting. Exactly. Ask once, put in the consequence, follow through. No anger, no attitude, just living the consequence. Yes, and make sure they know the consequence before. Just like a speeding ticket, we know the risk of taking that choice. Don't just surprise them. Loving, not living the consequence. Yes, Lisa, exactly. Always loving. So I hope this summit as a whole has really brought you to calm, has really made you realize that being calm doesn't mean you can't laugh, doesn't mean you can't have fun. Absolutely have fun. Laughter, it's the best medicine. Enjoy life. People that are calm love life. They have a great time. If you're all stressed out in one area of your life, fix it so that you can de-stress, learn. Find somebody who's an expert at it and reach out to them. It's a sense, it is courage to reach out for help. It is not weakness, it's a strength. So reach out for help. You've heard all kinds of experts in this summit. If someone connected with you, send them a message, reach out. So many great people in this world, so many. We can't possibly put them all on a summit. It would go on forever. Reach out to the person you connect with. That's important. Take advice from all of these little sessions. Rewatch them if you need to. Remember, like Chris Rock, you're in control of you. You're the person that can react and act in any way you want to, regardless of what's going on around you. You decide, I'm taking responsibility, personal responsibility. And before I leave, I'm going to tell you about the 4 things that we believe will make this world a better place and make it a better life for future generations. The first is personal responsibility. We have to take responsibility. All of this that you learned is personal responsibility. How do we spell out calm with personal responsibility? The C is consciousness. The A is accountability. The L is language. The M is mirroring. And you can leave that graphic up, guys. I like that graphic. That's how you spell out calm with responsibility. Mirroring, you're being the example. How do you spell out calm with intentional parenting? Connection, appreciation, love, motivation. How do you spell out calm through expressive education, creativity, association, learning, mindfulness? And how do you spell out calm with safety and security, care, awareness, liberty, mutual respect. And of course, all of these CALM acronyms and definitions can be shared throughout all of this. And this is what we're going to do. This is what we can do to take action. Because just sitting around and talking about what's going on is not working. Just thinking of just saying, oh, I wish this wouldn't happen. God forbid. This is one of my favorite things that Wendy Ologi, who is the parenting coach that I work with in Nigeria, said. I have to give her credit because it's one of my favorite things she said. God forbid is not a parenting strategy. I'll say it again. God forbid is not a parenting strategy. Do not, God forbid, your life away. Do not, God forbid, your child's life away. Be intentional. Decide, I'm going to be the best parent I can be. I'm going to be the best role model I can be for the children of the world. Whether you're a teacher, you're a businessman, you're a politician, which they clearly, they need a lot of work. They should all be here, right? You're an actor, you're a sports hero guy. What's that called? Athlete. You're an athlete. Be the best person you can be. Take that Martin Luther King quote about street sweepers. Be the best street sweeper you can be. Be the role model for others. I thank you all so much for being a part of my mission to bring personal responsibility, intentional parenting, expressive education, safety, and security to the children of the world so that they don't have to feel like they're in danger everywhere they go. They don't have to learn to be a bully from their home. Their home is nurturing and safe and loving. They're not in fear. They're not in fear of walking down the streets. They're not in fear of walking into their school. They have the ability to learn to be confident and worthy and happy and fun and loving and successful. And they're able to bring all of that into their children's lives. My children have children, and there is nothing more wonderful than seeing your children become wonderful parents to their children. It does carry on from generation to generation. It will affect 7 generations to come and beyond that. I thank you all for wanting to make this world the best it can be. And I'm going to cry. I am so grateful for all of you being here. I have to breathe and not cry. This means so much to me. And I appreciate Czar Anapan. I appreciate all you do to make this great. And I appreciate all the speakers, what they did to really, share stuff out. And I really appreciate all of you for deciding I need to be here. I need to do this. Whatever's going on in my life, this is a priority. Prioritize your life. Be intentional. Spread the calm. Let's make this a better world. Let's start today. Let's do something, not just talk about it. So take your advice. Do what you need to do. Rewatch this on YouTube at Pumped Up Parenting with Celia Kibler. Subscribe, thumbs up, comment. Shameless plug. Do what you need to do. I thank you for being here. And as always, I wish you days filled with peace, love, and tons of laughter. It really is the best medicine. Let's calm ourselves. Let's calm this world. Make it your best day. Bye-bye, everyone.
Brilliant School, the Lake Brilliant School. Though we have some challenges like little salary, poor school structures, and lack of enough seats, our school will do better if we have enough reliable support. Happy International Comes.
Friends, this is our school garden. You can see the corns. Wow, when they grow up, we're going to enjoy them. Thank you. This is Africa. You can see the beautiful mountain Rwenzori, the tea plantations. Hey!
My name is Atoile Joseph, the current head teacher, Brilliant Nasaran Primary School. My school or the school has enrollment of 385 pupils, and it merged to become the best in our community.
May God bless America, may God bless Europe, may God bless Asia, may God bless Africa, may God bless Uganda, may God bless Brilliant Nazareth and Primary School. We love you all.
Hi, I'm Celia Kibler, and I am the founder of the International Day of Calm. And I want to take a minute to tell you why I created the Day of Calm and why it is my intention to create this feeling of calm, happiness throughout the year. Because if we don't do something to change our daily lives, how will we ever change future generations? How will we create the next generation of adults that are confident and that are self-reliant and that are intentional about their own behaviors if we don't take the time to show them and role model what it's like to be that kind of person? It's a fourfold mission. Number one is personal responsibility. Each person has to start taking responsibility for themselves, for their actions and reactions, to stop the ridicule, the judgment, the criticism, and start connecting compassionately. We are all role models to kids. We need to create intentional parents that create a cooperative, respectful, happy home and create the family harmony that every family deserves and every child deserves. We need to have expressive education that allows a child to be curious and creative and finds learning fun. We need to make children safe. We need to have them know that their personal harm is not an everyday worry, that they're safe in their homes and in their schools. And these four initiatives combine to create a child that becomes the adult of the next generation who is confident, who is not recovering from their childhood, who is intentional, compassionate, loving, kind, and willing to learn about other people and other ways and other values. Let's do this together. Join me for the International Day of Calm Summit when you can learn how to do this. And let's start doing this not just for one day on April 5th, but throughout the year. Isn't our world worth it? Isn't the next generation worth it? Go to dayofcalm.org.